Hello and welcome to A Review to a Kill, the James Bond retrospective podcast where we rewatch every Bond from Connery to Craig to review and rank each one. I'm your host, Special Agent Sedgwick, and returning for this debrief is an agent who would have taken Silva to Gitmo and been done with it.
Chris Carter, and yeah.
Today, we are reviewing Spectre, the 24th Bond outing from Eon Productions, the second most financially successful Bond film of all time, and the first since Connery's last to feature Spectre or Blofeld, as they got the rights in 2013, after Skyfall, not before it as I had guessed last time. Often credited with the biggest opening sequence, this movie was the first since John Glenn to bring back the last film's director, and it retconned the last three films with its new big bad in center scope.
I don't know how I feel about that. I understand what they were trying to do, but I don't think they quite nailed it.
The film premiered at the Royal Albert Hall on the 26th of October 2015 as part of the Royal Film Performance Aid event. Reception for the film was overwhelmingly negative. Inconsistent, exhausted, and uninspired with lapses of logic are some direct critiques from release. Retrospective reviews have been much of the same, with some complaining of the drab tone and mean-spiritedness of the film.
I don't want to say it seemed like a cash grab, but that's kind of how it felt.
For me, it felt like Sam Mendes was trying to make a Daniel Craig-era Bond movie in the old formula style, and it didn't mesh.
No.
Made for $300 million, it made $880.7 million in the box office. The film was nommed for quite a few minor awards. It won an Oscar and a Golden Globe, but both were for Sam Smith's song.
The fact that bad Bond movies make so much money, you're on top. It's a franchise that cannot lose.
You factor in marketing, this movie did pretty poorly compared to how much Skyfall made. Skyfall was made for like half as much and made more.
It still made a little money. It wasn't a flop.
Mendes said originally that he was out. Craig said he was debating not doing it. But he did, and Mendes said screw it too. But Craig said after this, he definitely won't do another. Maybe. Probably not. He'd rather slit his wrist. Yeah, he'll do one more. Produced by Babs Brock and Mike Wilson, Daniel Craig returning. Before we start, we are recording this on the second anniversary of our first video, Dr. No. And we have never done this before and will likely never do it again. It's just really not our style. But please, help us get paid for our hard work and your views. Please subscribe and help us get to 1,000. Thank you, and let's start the show. The production logos fly. The Bond theme strikes up. It's smooth, subdued, 100 strings building to the dots that actually roll out at the beginning, finally, as the horns blast and Bond walks out to fire. He's silhouetted, and the blood drip fades to black instead of a dot reveal.
This is the first time that you get the gun barrel sequence.
We hear two beats and see the words, "The dead are alive," before hard cutting to a Day of the Dead celebration in Mexico City. This was put on for the movie. Thousands of extras, I'm sure a lot of whom showed up in their own Dia de los Muertos apparel. But the makeup department was on overdrive getting a lot of these guys painted and in costume.
Oh, this shot looked magnificent. And for what I understand, that they never had a festival there in that town until Bond did it, and then now stupid Americans go there all the time for the Day of the Dead festival. So they do it. They put it on. They're making money, so, they do the festival now. They never did it before, but here we are.
They've always had a festival. They just haven't had a parade. Now they have a parade. Before, it was way more of a personal, familial, sentimental, intimate thing.
Stupid Americans.
It's also filmed and edited to look like an unbroken, long take as we sweep through the crowd to follow a man in white until he passes Bond channeling Baron Samedi.
Doing a good job. When I first saw this, I didn't recognize him at first because of the mask. Pretty well done. And his one take was a little bit better this time than it was in Skyfall.
After making his target, a man named Marco Ciara, played by Alessandro Cremona, Bond, and his arm candy walk a different direction, entering the Grand Hotel Ciudad de Mexico. Now, this same hotel was featured in License to Kill.
Nice. I love it when they bring back old sets, because you don't ever recognize them.
They go to a lot of places where like 10 movies shot there.
Right?
And one thing I noticed about them is they're really good at going to places you've seen a bunch of movies and shooting them in different spots and different angles and really kind of like making them feel like different places.
Right, yeah. They do a really good job. And overall, the set production and, location cinematography of the Craig era of Bonds is overall just pretty magnificent.
For the most part. I would disagree with that statement in this movie, but that's just me.
There's the law of averages, right? I'm not saying every movie was perfect.
The music is fantastic. The tracking shot is amazingly done and a huge precursor to Mendes's 1917 work. In their hotel room, Bond demasks for this film's reveal. His arm candy is Mexican agent Estrella, played by Stephanie Sigman. She kisses Bond and walks to the bed to pull the camera from Bond. She lays on the bed seductively and then asks, "Where are you going?" as the camera swings to Bond in another suit, tossing his Day of the Dead one, saying he won't be long. Now, they are implying he had that suit underneath his other suit?
Immaculately tailored. It's like you never noticed. He had a whole nother suit under the immaculately tailored costume he had on.
And don't think about it, just look at that wicked gun. With the camera still following and the shot still seemingly unbroken through clever editing, Bond steps out onto the balcony and walks the ledge of the buildings. This is a good time to mention that after the success of Skyfall, they were given a lot more money to shoot at more actual locations and do more stunts. Specifically, do them for real. Bond style, baby.
The stunt work was pretty good. I'm not going to deny.
Craig is really up above Mexico City, unharnessed, traversing these ledges. He's really driving the car chases and way more stuff in this film. When he said he beat up his body for Bond, he wasn't lying.
He wasn't kidding.
And it must have been an insurer's nightmare.
God damn. I could see the guy on set all the time writing the waivers, like just looking at Daniel Craig like,
how high is he up there on that ledge? He's harnessed, right?
No harness.
Bond fixes his cuff, puts in an earpiece, and readies his weapon, suppressing it. He walks over the celebrations to notes of his theme and takes cover at the end of a building to scope the building across. He flips the stock and hits the laser as the camera sweeps over him to the building across, and we hear from his earpiece the conversation inside. Ciara is meeting with someone who has a bomb, and Ciara says they'll blow up the stadium at 6. The guy with the bomb keeps asking, "And then what?" to get incredibly forced dialogue. But the gist is, Ciara has a flight out of here arranged for himself, and he's off to meet the Pale King after. Bond's laser is spotted, and he shoots some goons before shooting the bomb case and blowing the shit out of that building. Duck, James.
So, in my mind, I'm like, you're a professional trained agent. You know that's a bomb. You should also know it was designed to kill a lot of people at a stadium. So, of course, it's going to knock down a fucking building.
I definitely don't think he thought about how powerful that was probably going to be.
It didn't seem like that thought crossed his mind. It's like, oh, it's just a bomb. It'll go off, kill everybody in the room.
James Bond sees explosives. When he's in a jam, he shoots it.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the go-to.
Think about Casino Royale. I mean, even in Skyfall.
Yeah, he likes to blow shit up.
He likes to shoot explosives, especially when he's in a jam.
Dominic Green.
Yeah, that's how he got out with her, too.
Yes, he likes to shoot explosives.
Pierce Brosnan jumps off shit. Daniel Craig shoots explosives. We figured this shit out, man.
Yes, I think we're getting it. Every Bond has a unique thing, huh?
This causes the structural integrity of the building to, well, collapse. Half of it falls towards Bond, who dives to catch the edge of a slab and then just slides down it. Whee!
Do you know, the only thing I kept thinking at the end of this scene is that scene in Monty Python and The Life of Brian when the guy's like, "You're damn lucky."
Now his building is crumbling, of course. So he hops as his floor falls away to a bit still sticking from the wall, which gives way suddenly, sending James falling down to land perfectly on a couch with an odd, well, shrug face. It's very Mr. Bean. I hope this movie doesn't make a habit of becoming a parody of itself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
There's no celebration on the street when he comes out. It looks like the aftermath of one of those September attack things that YouTube doesn't want us to talk about. People look hurt in the background, but hey, Ciara's alive, and he's finally got some color in his outfit.
Matches tie.
They lock eyes, and Ciara takes off. Bond chases through the rubble and back to the celebration. This camera shake is by far the worst in the franchise. Y'all gonna talk about Quantum of Solace, but this is the first time it actually gave me a headache, and also added nothing.
For a brief minute, I was like, why is J.J. Abrams on the set of this movie?
Ciara loses Bond in the parade, and we get a callback to the Junkanoo in Thunderball. Exact same vibes, just reversed. They see each other again, but on opposite sides of the parade. Ciara keeps looking up, causing Bond to wonder what he's looking at. Ciara rushes into the enormous crowd to make for his getaway Messerschmitt BO-105, which is touched down in the middle of the crowd in the Plaza de la Constitución. The square, usually called the Zocalo, is the second largest square in the world, and that called for some CGI crowd fluffing. Like Donald Trump, they had to make their crowd bigger in post.
Unlike Donald Trump, they succeeded.
I love how when Ciara is shoving people in the crowd, they literally have no reaction. He and Bond make it to the chopper at the same time, and Bond pimp canes a dude before tackling Ciara into the helicopter as it takes off.
I love it how he pimp canes that dude, too. It's like, bitch, where's my money? Perfect wrist snap, he didn't even break stride.
Ciara and Bond fight, but Bond also takes the time to immediately grab the pilot by the neck with both hands throttling and beats the pilot's head against the console a couple of times. So now the bird is just spinning and acting drunk up there.
That was the other thing I was thinking to myself, is like, why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
Like, what?
First off, just finish with the guy in the back.
The back, right. Like, first, finish your first meal, right? Finish the first thing, and then you get to dessert.
Why would you just start choking this guy out?
I get it. He works for the bad guy. You know, you're probably going to have to do something to him. I get it. But immediately, he's flying the goddamn helicopter.
You still have a fight. What did you think was going to happen? Now the helicopter's out of control. Look, this is how you get ants.
This is how you get ants. I was just thinking the same thing. You want ants?
Red Bull's stunt chopper pilot, Chuck Aaron, was hired to do the stunt work here. They even just painted his Red Bull chopper and used it. The men, fighting outside, really fought outside the bird, but they were the stuntmen, with the actors' faces digitally swapped later on.
I'm sure the insurance guy is like, no fucking way.
We draw the line at Craig outside the helicopter. The chopper spins. People scream. Bond and Ciara grapple back and forth before fighting outside the helicopter. There's some terrible green screen work in this sequence, but Bond beats Ciara's ass, steals his ring, and then attacks the pilot again when the pilot draws on Bond.
What? A flare gun. He draws a flare gun. First of all, you're a professional contract pilot who works undercover at Black Ops. Why aren't you strapped? Secondly,
Bond's killed people with flare guns.
Well, everybody's killed people with flare guns. It's a common trope in movies.
Carter's admitting to murder by flare gun.
I did not say that I have killed people with flare guns.
You said everybody. The chopper corkscrews, almost ejecting Bond and Ciara, both hanging onto their doorways when Bond punts Ciara into the underworld. And as badass as this kill may have been, that corkscrew was way cooler.
Oh, dude, the helicopter pilot was on one.
Bond immediately starts choking the pilot, who dives at the crowd. Jesus, James didn't think that through. Bond squeezes with all he has, and the pilot pulls back as hard as he can. The chopper pitches up and over, stalling out into a goddamn barrel roll.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
It plummets to earth. The men keep fighting until Bond kicks the pilot out also. He seats himself and pulls up hard, shaking, sweating, and, in typical Bond fashion, pulls up just in time.
Wasn't this reminiscent of when he dropped Blofeld down a chimney?
A little bit.
A little bit, right?
That wasn't Blofeld. That was legally distinct bald bad guy.
Legally distinct, sometimes known as Ernst.
The last movie was a perfect mix of Craig's run, until then, and the old Bond formula. This one leans way too into the old Bond formula, and that was one of the major critiques on release.
That was the majority of the problem with this movie is instead of doing clever callbacks, they just leaned into just mimicking.
Yeah, they just made an old-style Bond movie in the middle of Craig's era, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So Bond flies away. The Bond theme plays, and we see him inspect the ring he stole. The writings on the wall refrain, hitting before the title song itself, that feels wrong. Looking at the ring, we see the Spectre septopus. We get a GQ zoom transition into the titles as Sam Smith's writings on the wall starts. Cephalopods, flames, nude girl silhouettes, and the worst Bond song of all time. Here we go, let's get it over with. Bond cold stares, nude, as the girls wrap themselves around him before flashing to Bond and Madeline Swan falling, reaching for each other. If the cues seem off in this title, it's because they are. When preparing for this movie, the producers approached the greatest band of all time, Radiohead. Radiohead turned in a song inspired by Bond's themes they wrote in the 90s, but it was turned down in hopes of something more original for the film. So Tom York and Johnny Greenwood stopped work on their 9th and likely final Radiohead album to get to work with the London Orchestra. What they made was a fucking masterpiece, a goddamn magnum opus of Bond themes. There are entire videos by musicians explaining how intelligently the song is written, and as such, I won't go into it. They got as far as the titles being made because I've taken out Sam Smith's song and added Spectre by Radiohead at the beginning transition, and the titles match perfectly. They were made for that song. That's how last minute Sam Mendes got the song changed. And after years of blaming Barbara Broccoli, it was only recently that I found out that it was Sam's call to pull for his fellow Sam. This was a terrible call. They shelved the best Bond song ever written and replaced it with one of the worst on its own, the crime of which making it the worst. Pre-screening the film, which I was lucky enough to do, when the song hit, I remember being incredibly underwhelmed, and I knew nothing about the other song yet. And, I mean so underwhelmed, it took me out and I thought about it then and there, wondering if it was some kind of a precursor of what was to come. I hate this song.
When this whole thing started up, I was immediately distracted. I couldn't focus on the background. It was like there was some sort of dissonance, dissyncopation in my brain that the song and the background weren't going together. I had to stop, go back 2 minutes because I couldn't remember what I had just seen in the last 2 minutes because I was too busy trying to think about what the song was doing. The visuals were magnificent. I like the callbacks to the previous movies. I like the high concept CGI music video feel of that whole title sequence. The visuals were pretty nice. I liked them a lot. The song doesn't mesh well. None of it goes together.
It doesn't even mesh with the movie.
Yeah, like none of it goes together. It doesn't work. It's just wrong.
It doesn't work.
It just falls flat. It lacks punch and needs a different song or perhaps a different singer.
Maybe they could have at least made a title sequence that was properly cued for the new song.
Right. I'm not trying to knock Sam Smith. I like Sam Smith. I like a lot of his work, but not this song.
Bond straight fucks a girl in the title when it becomes a Japanese style with tentacles everywhere.
It becomes tentaporn. You're not wrong.
Co-producers Andrew Noakes and David Pope. And Daniel Craig? How much you want to bet Danny Kleinman made these titles? Broken glass motif again? So overdone, I used it in our old extended opening for this show. The broken reflections again showing Silva. We see Vesper disappearing into a smoky, dark void before the screen shatters again to reflections of Lashif. Supervising art director Chris Lowe, set decor Anna Pennick, visual effects producer Leslie Lerman. We then see Olivia Mansfield disappearing also into another smoky, dark void. Visual effects supervisor Steve Begg, associate producers Greg Wilson and Jane Ann Tengren. There's a bit that's almost funereal as Bond and a female walk underneath the great and dark cephalopod with a skull for a head. If you look close at our poster for this movie, I put his skull mask from the opening sequence over the octopus.
I know, it's my favorite poster. I already told you that.
Newman has said the same thing.
Shout out.
Main titles by Danny Kleinman. How'd I guess?
You did guess.
We see photos floating in the flames, singeing slowly. Some we'll recognize as photos from Bond's childhood. Second unit director Alex Witt, edited by Lee Smith. Bond aims to fire, but the serpent-like tentacles slither over the trigger. The bullet fires, and smoky tracers fly everywhere around new girls with smoky hair.
Now it's smoke.
Director of photography, Hoyt van Hoytema. He was a Mendes guy, and with more power over the film, Mendes made another bonehead decision and axed Roger Deakins, who was on God mode.
He was on God mode because he probably told Sam Mendes no.
Yeah, and this guy is a yes man, and that's why Mendes brought him in, and we all suffer.
Yeah, we all suffer.
Production designer Dennis Gassner. We see the Spectre office and number 1 at the head of the table, the tentacles emanating from him. Music by Thomas Newman. The worst Bond song of all time by Sam Smith. Fuck you, Sam Mendes. Fuck you, Sam Smith. Baseless little bitch. Executive producer Callum McDougall.
I gotta stick up for Sam Smith. I like a lot of his other songs.
I don't like any of his fucking songs.
No?
One of the themes, if you can call it that, is eyes everywhere watching. And it's Craig-era Bond, so there's also a super close-up to an eye. But this time, the iris is tentacles. Screenplay by Purvis and Wade in a rare miss, with John Logan and funny name winner Jez Butterworth, no relation to the syrup.
Do you think it was a rare miss, or do you think it was Mendes's direction and a slight alterations?
I think Purvis and Wade are geniuses. I think 4 writers and Mendes having way more control really hurt this film.
Yeah, that's what I think. Because, like, if you look at the deeper concepts of what was going on, like, I could see the potential of this being a really good movie, but executed poorly.
Produced by Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli. Swan gives Bond the Spectre ring. Nice little bit there.
Yeah, that's all right.
In a film ruined by Sam Mendes.
Did you not like 1917?
Dude, I told you last time, I feel like this guy is a haymaker-throwing boxer. He has a lot of misses, and when he hits, like, they're huge, but he has a lot of misses.
That's fair. That's fair.
When we focus back in, M is throwing down the morning papers, with headlines calling out the destruction in Mexico. Start any way you like. He sours. Bond went down there and did all of this on his own. He went rogue before the movie even started.
He was rogue before the movie even started. M is already pissed off. This is I don't want to say this is unusual for Bond, but it is a little bit unusual.
It's at least a record. Bond says he saved a stadium full of people, and M says save it. They just merged MI6 and MI5, and the government's itching for a reason to scrap the 00 section. M demands to know, officially, what Bond was doing there. Bond says it was just a coincidence on holiday, so M suspends Bond.
Indefinitely.
Bond doesn't seem to care. In fact, almost seems pleased. M says to stop whatever he's trying to do out there, and in walks Andrew Scott as Max Denby, or C, head of the new Joint Intelligence Service.
What do you think C stands for? Because I'm pretty sure in Bond's mind it stands for cunt.
In Bond's mind it does stand for cunt, but that's not what it stands for. Bond and C, introduced by sizing each other up and jockeying for posture, disguised as pleasant formalities.
It's the British way.
Scott played Moriarty on the BBC series Sherlock, and he brings some of that same quiet, reserved menace here. He's manipulative off the bat, but Bond doesn't see him as a threat. Maybe his ally of the movie will take care of this guy or something. And don't say spoilers, they showed C and M fighting in the trailers.
Did they really? Ouch. Why would they do that?
Because they're dumb.
God damn it.
Sam Mendes suggested a plot twist revealing M to be the villain of this film, which Fiennes vetoed. Another draft by Logan had MI6 Chief of Staff Bill Tanner uncovered as a Spectre mole. They settled on C and made him subplot/side mission for M. By the way, M is actually short for mission as the head of missions department, and C is short for Chief of SIS. And now you know, and knowing's half the battle. G.I. Joe.
Knowing's half the battle. The other half is 25% blue lasers, 25% red lasers.
M tells Bond to report to Q for medical tomorrow and dismisses him. The circular courtyard of the government office is the real-life Treasury Building courtyard off Whitehall. There, Moneypenny runs up to Bond, asking how the meeting went and trying to give him another box. Personal effects from Skyfall, just cleared by forensics. Bond says to bring them by his place later that night. We then cut to Bond's apartment in Notting Hill, West London. They put him in an upscale flat, but it's Spartan as fuck. Telly on the floor, decor on the floor, comforter on this sofa, coffee table used as a desk, complete with bourbon.
Bond lives his life exactly like every chick says not.
It's like he has furniture, but it's all on the floor. He has all these paintings that he never put up. He probably has like an entire bedroom suite that's unassembled in his bedroom.
Probably.
I don't know if this is because he never got around to this after his old place was sold off and stored, or maybe they're going for a Rust Cole True Detective type of vibe, but it's still far more of what I feel like this guy's home would actually be like than in Casino Royale 67. He'd barely be there anyways, and it just doesn't seem like having a cozy home is a priority for a man who throws himself at bullets first and worries about it later.
You're right. Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I pretty much took it to be like he hasn't settled down after Skyfall.
In this movie's official timeline, it's been over 3 years since Skyfall.
Oh, boo. Then he lives like that.
It's a little bit of both.
Right.
It's a little bit of him being lazy about it. Like, they dismantled his whole house. He's got to put it all back together, and he's never there.
Right.
Interior decoration doesn't matter for a dude who literally would put the mission before his own life.
I always hope he'd move back into the old Skyfall mansion.
They blew it up.
I know they blew it up, but that doesn't mean he can't get it fixed. The dude has millions.
It would just be a different place.
It's not like he ain't rich.
Eve arrives, and James lets her in. She asks if he just moved in, and his face is hilarious. He says no, looking genuinely confused.
Hurt, even.
Lending credence to Carter's he just lives like that theory.
Mm-hmm.
Eve gives him the box, and Bond drops it on the table in the most dismissing manner possible. He sits and offers her a drink. She asks what's going on with him. Mexico was one step too far, and people are saying he's finished. He asks what she thinks, and she says he's just getting started. Because Mendes loves these cheesy lines that don't really work outside the trailer, but damn it, they'll sound cool in that trailer.
You're just getting started.
Eve says he won't share secrets because he trusts no one. Because again, Mendes doesn't care about the previous films. This movie will prove it by ruining them completely. Even his own.
Well, yeah, because he learned to trust Moneypenny, and she shot him.
This film also constantly ignores the trauma and age that was the focus of the last movie. He was too old and broken last time, and now he's just Superman, doing whatever he wants physically. You'll see this throughout the film. Fuck injuries, trauma, lessons, growth, and even age. This is back to that consequence-free Indiana Jones-style vicarious superhero Bond. And it sucks.
You mean you work out all the time? That doesn't just make everything magically go away?
But Bond does prove Eve wrong and turns on his telly, which instantly starts a video. Olivia Mansfield, at the very least wearing a continuity-correct outfit, speaks beyond the grave, making this Dench's 8th and true final film. She tells Bond that if Silva kills her, then go to Mexico and kill Ciara, for some reason, even though they're worried about Silva. But still, then go to that guy's funeral and let the plot fall into your lap.
Yeah.
It's honestly kind of random at best and ridiculous at worst.
The writing was weak. The idea is good, but the writing is weak.
She literally tells him to go to a funeral and let the plot fall in your lap. Like, just see what happens. Just see.
Like, there's no more information than that. Just go to the funeral. Use your instincts. Like,
I guess, yeah. Activate your bat vision. Detective mode. Moving along, though, the funeral is in Rome in 3 days, and Bond asks Moneypenny to research the Pale King. She laughs that she's to be his mole, 'cause 20 minutes in, and Bond is going rogue for a second fucking time. I can't tell if this movie is underthought or insanely overthought.
it's like, I don't know why you don't put me in handcuffs, because if you don't put me in handcuffs, I'm gonna go do what I'm gonna do.
And I'm going to blow up entire city blocks in other countries.
Last chance.
She asks him what makes him think he can trust her. You know, after fighting side by side and her having a blade at his throat. And he responds, instinct.
Bitch, you shot me. Like, what if I don't trust you now, I will never trust you. You're right, the writing was bad.
Later on, you can tell by his robe, we focus on the bulldog before panning up to Bond, going through his effects. Half-burned and singed photos, and documents where he finds an order of temporary guardianship for young Master James Bond to one Mr. Hans Oberhauser. It also says Bond is 12 at the time, with a date of 1983, so this Bond was born in 1971, making him 3 years younger than Craig himself.
That's interesting. This Bond is only 2 years younger than me.
Bond grabs a photo of a man who turns out to be Hans with 2 small boys. One is James, and the other has his face conveniently burned. Bond shows no emotion. It's almost as if he can't remember anything about it, which is incredibly odd. And how has this never come up before?
Right.
He was adopted for years.
Yeah.
So throw that in all the other shit he had done before he got here.
This was weird. I mean, I understand what they were trying to do, but
I don't.
see, this is the other thing. They didn't put anything into the movie to get you to this point. It's like, oh, all of a sudden, here's Bond and some guy and some picture with this face burnt off and this thing of adoption. And you're like, okay, so what does all of this mean?
Suddenly, adoption returned.
That is stupid as fuck.
We then cut to a tour on the Thames past the charred shell of Vauxhall Cross, which is still there for some reason, 3 years later in canon. If this is supposed to be 3 years later, why is Bond just now getting to all of this anyways?
Yeah, I don't know. Was it stuck in the mail?
Bond and Tanner take the HMS Expo dump to the new Q Lab.
That's funny because that's what I wrote about that. The HMS Expo dump. I like that. That's funny.
Tanner says they'll finally demolish the old headquarters in a week, and that it's cheaper to knock down than rebuild. Still, time waits for no man and all that. Apparently, all the money is being spent on a new lavish center for the national security, a tall new spire in the London skyline. Tanner dumps that C thinks the double O's can be replaced by drones, and in 3 days, there's a security conference to decide if C gains access to the intelligence streams of 9 different countries. And hold up, what the fuck? Who would do this? No one would sign off on this, and if they did, they don't have any intelligence to steal.
Do you know that there's already a program that's called Five Eyes? America can't spy on Americans, but Australia can. And then Australia can share that intelligence with America. And that's kind of how the Five Eyes system works.
You're talking about is there's just like a handshake group where they trade knowledge. What this is complete and utter openness and consolidation of 9 major countries' intelligence. It's about here I notice how drab this movie is. The contrast is low, the saturation is down, and the colors blend into blah. Gone is the masterful cinematography that made every shot a painting also. I'm just not getting anything to work with from the scenery and the framing.
I'm not saying like they didn't do a decent job on the locations. It's just that they didn't utilize them very well.
They went to some great places. It's just, what did they add to the film, really?
Nothing.
Besides a couple of nods.
Right, exactly. Nothing really.
Nothing was blocked or framed remarkably.
Nothing was stood out as like, ooh.
So Bond walks into Q's lab and immediately grabs an auto rifle and starts playing with it. As you do.
As he does.
Q audibly rolls his eyes and walks over to Bond before casually disarming him and hold up again. This guy is a pajama warrior who made fun of trigger pullers, and he has spots. Who, when, and how trained this kid to be weapons proficient up to disarming techniques? Bullshit. The most bullshit since Die Another Day.
Maybe 007s come in and point rifles at him frequently.
For some more bullshit, Q injects Bond's arm with smart blood. Nanotech in Bond's bloodstream that replaces the removable tracker Lashif broke. Fine, it's James Bond. Future tech and science fiction was always on the table, but damn it, you just know this will come up again dialed up to 11.
1100.
They can monitor his vitals and location, but Q also has something else for Bond. They reveal the 2015 Aston Martin DB10, and Q gives the marketing pitch. Q says it was meant for Bond, but now it's going to 009. Dude, you're getting that car. Nice.
More like, It was meant for 009, but the keys are over there on the table. I'll be out of the office later. Fuck, whatever.
I love how Q showed him this just to rub it in and says, but you can have this, and gives him a watch. Does it do anything? Bond grinds. It tells the time. Q twists. After relishing M's ordered punishment, Q informs Bond the watch does have a rather loud alarm, if you know what he means.
Does it blow up? Is that what he means?
It blows up.
Does
That's
it
what he
blow up?
means.
Does it?
It blows
Really?
up. I don't know if you know this. It blows up.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. It blows up.
It blows up.
This is James Bond. I like how he, like that subtle nod he puts in there, if you know what I mean. I didn't know what he meant.
They walk past Bond's DB5. Well, the body of one. Q says it's taking time to rebuild it and makes a joke about having wanted it brought back in one piece. But that was Bond's personal car that he won on an island in a bet before he met you.
Yeah.
And pulled out of the storage unit that they took out in his death.
Yeah.
This movie fucking sucks. Stupid ass shit doesn't even care to try to keep up with itself. For what? A terrible joke?
There are two executive producers, one by the name of Broccoli, who should know the continuity of their own movies, right?
Oh, Mendez got more control because Skyfall was a hit. So they just sat back and said, okay, Mendez got this. Shit, I sat back as an audience member thinking, oh shit, Mendez got this.
There needs to be continuity police in all franchises.
Bond asks Q to make him disappear, and Q complains about having cats to feed. Bond says he better trust him for the sake of the cats, and Tanner nods. Q says the smart blood is still early in development and might lose communication abilities intermittently for the first 24 hours. Bond haggle stares the kid, and Q raises to 48 hours. Oh, and also the DB9, his previous car, is in the background here.
I didn't notice.
Cut to an aerial shot of London. Nice wheel.
That's the eye.
Cutting again to Moneypenny entering the office to find an orchid on her desk next to a box. Inside is a card that simply says, thanks, Jay. And a burner phone. Forgot to mention that part.
Thanks. Thanks for helping me out. Here's a burner phone.
You're not done helping me out. M walks in, and she covers that it's just a trifle from an admirer, and he's more concerned he missed her birthday, which was last week. In this movie, Mallory actually seems like the dick they tried to rope-a-dope you into believing he was last time.
Yeah.
In the first act. Then he just goes back to being badass.
Well, I guess, yeah, he did more in the later half of this movie.
We cut again to Q being informed that Carter has arrived to pick up the DB-10. Q opens the bay doors to the car, but finds only a bottle of Dom on ice. Cheers, sport. You got screwed, Carter. I knew you weren't going to get that car, and no way it comes back intact for you.
Well, yeah, Bond takes it. I'll just get something else. At least he left me champagne. He's a class act guy.
Cut to Rome. Bond drives through the grand arch of the Garibaldi Museum, and the camera pans up to establish the city. The music is so Danny Elfman here, I kept expecting Edward Scissorhands to pop up comedically from the back seat. Oh look, Colosseum.
Here's the thing, I kind of like Danny Elfman music, and
It's fucking weird.
kind of took me back to Batman 89 all of a sudden. I was like, oh, look at that.
Bond arrives at a monumentally austere ceremony for Ciara's funeral. The striking fascist architecture is the entrance of the Museo della Civiltà Romana, or Museum of Roman Civilization, built under the reign of Benito Mussolini. Equilibrium was also filmed here.
They tried to compose some shots here, and they were just teetering on the edge of being like, ooh, there's going to be some good composition.
Do you remember the caskets in Skyfall?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was awesome. This wasn't.
No, it wasn't. I was going to say.
I mean, in terms of shot composition only, not location.
Yeah. No, the location was good. And the shot like I said, they were teetering. They were trying. But they just didn't, like, whoever he hired instead of the last guy.
He didn't have it. He ain't it.
Stop sucking nuts and work on his composition a little bit more.
Bond notes the only thing of interest at the funeral, Monica Bellucci, who plays Ciara's widow, Lucia Ciara. At casting, Monica became, at the age of 50, the oldest actress to be cast as a love interest Bond girl, though she had previously auditioned for the role of Paris Carver in Tomorrow Never Dies.
I wish he had gotten that role.
Me too.
Oh, I love Monica Bellucci so much.
When everyone leaves, she stays, apparently mourning. Bond approaches, saying, "Sorry for your loss." She asks if he knew her husband, and he says, all too briefly, "I'm in life insurance and you may need some. The life expectancy of some widows is very short." And he is implying what you think he is. It's not veiled at all.
No, he's like, you're gonna die.
"How can you talk like this? Can't you see I'm grieving?" "No," Bond says, as short as possible, as her guards step in the background. She leaves, and one guard with her, but one stays behind, staring at Bond, who just drops his head and waves at him like, "Hey there, sport." It's so belittling, it's hilarious.
It is.
"Bitch, go somewhere before I have to hurt you."
He's like, hey there, little man. Go get some cake.
We cut to Lucia in her home, listening to Giuseppe Verdi's La Traviata, drinking cognac, letting down her hair, not turning on the lights. Oh, look, a man in the corner. Oh, it's her guard. That's not creepy at all, though. Oh, shit, he's stalking her. Oh, snaps, the other guard. How many assassins does it take to kill an oblivious 50-year-old widow?
I don't think she's oblivious. She knows they're there.
Oh, she knows.
She's prepared to die.
Also, this place is nice. They even got a pool. This palatial house is Villa di Fiorano, outside Rome. She knows what's up. She can hear them, feel them. Deep down, she knew. That's why Bond knew her face wasn't grief. It was fear.
Monica Bellucci is one of the finest actresses on the face of the planet. And I don't mean like banging fine, although she is also one of the finest actresses on the planet. But as far as acting chops, she is one of the finest actresses on the planet.
She walks out to the pool and never looks up, just spirals from despondency into shivering terror, awaiting the inevitable. The two men raise their weapons in synchronized fashion. It's kind of cartoonish.
Kind of cartoonish.
Hard close up on her, with the men out of focus. When she hears the suppressed shots, she jumps slightly. But it's the men that fall. Life insurance, baby.
That's what he does. He sells life insurance. He saves lives as he kills two guys.
The camera slightly pans to reveal Bond in the background behind her, and even as he walks up right behind her, he's still slightly out of focus because the camera operator never adjusted his depth of field from his hard close-up. She is distinctly sharper than he is, and there's a foot difference in their distance to the lens.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
"What a lovely view," he says. She says he's wasting his time. There's 100 more that'll come after her, and all he's bought her is 5 minutes. Bond smiles. Excellent. Time for a drink. Monica is so hot. Always has been, always will be, and a fine actress, with a character that's a highlight of the film. Lucia is just shattered. In the face of death, she succumbed to the overwhelming weight of fear. Her acceptance was more of a surrender. It's heartbreaking. Cutting inside, Bond pops the bubbly, and Lucia says, "You killed him, didn't you? My husband?" And Bond, cold as ice, says, "He was an assassin. Trust me, he won't take it personally." And she slaps him, barely.
Barely. Just enough to be like, I want you to take my corset off.
You know? Oh, I'm angry. Please don't fuck me.
That's that Italian love right there.
But he dramatically drops the flutes to shatter and walks toward her as she backs away. "You signed my death warrant." Knowing her husband's secrets makes her a loose end in his death. She says if he doesn't leave, they'll die together. And Bond pins her against a giant fucking mirror, saying, "I could think of worse ways to go." "Then you're obviously crazy." He asks about the Pale King, because this Bond only sleeps with women he has feelings for or can get info out of.
Essentially.
She doesn't know about all that. She just knows the organization is ruthless and all-powerful. They rarely all meet, but are holding a meeting tonight at the Palazzo Cadenza to choose her husband's replacement. But Bond has until midnight, so they bang.
Of course they do.
Cutting to after, as per Bond tradition, Bond leaves her Felix's number for protection. He dons her husband's Spectre ring and kisses her goodbye. She begs him not to go, but Bond has to. We cut to him driving to the Palazzo Cadenza, which is the real-life Blenheim Palace, Churchill's birthplace in Woodstock, Oxfordshire. The marbled interior is a stage at Pinewood. Bond enters and is immediately grilled by some goon, played by Dennis Wood, who calls Bond an asshole and tells him to identify. Bond says, "I'm Mickey Mouse. Who are you?" And all of this is in Russian, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Bond flashes the ring, and the goon allows him entry. But as Bond ascends the stairs, the goons make a call.
Yeah, because obviously there's a code word, dumbass. Flashing the ring is not just going to get you in. Bond, sometimes, it's a little stupid.
I'm going to throw this out there. If Spectre really has been running everything and Quantum was just like an offshoot, like a tentacle essentially, then everyone here knows who he is and that he's been fucking up all of their plans for years now.
Exactly. Everybody has known who he is since Vesper.
They got his picture next to the door that says, "Do not allow this man in," like at a gas station for shoplifters.
Right.
Of course Blofeld knew he was up there. I'm sure the guard dropped him by name.
Probably so. Hey, you guys, James Bond's here.
James Bond's here. You know that guy that like literally ruined like 3 of your last 5 big plans? This shot of Bond climbing the steps has to be the best shot of the film so far.
It's a pretty good one.
He steps onto the upper level of the Grand Hall, and we hear a laundry list of dirty deeds done for a pretty penny. Pharmaceutical counterfeiting, human trafficking, and the like. When a Spectre head named Dr. Vogel, played by Bridget Millar, continues the minutes of the meeting. She feels like a nod to Klebb for me.
A nod to whom?
Klebb, Rosa Klebb.
Oh,
But screw her. While she's talking, huge doors open, and in walks number 1, obscured by distance, shadow, and camera angles. He takes his seat at the head of the table. This stops the meeting cold, highlighting the control he has over everyone through palpable fear. Fuck, he snaps his fingers to make a goon move his mic 3 inches for him. That's power.
I thought that's petty is what I thought. I was like, really? Really? You whisper to your assistant to move your microphone closer so people can hear you?
Yeah. It's all the impression of power to his underlings. Those are the people who could rise up and just stab him.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to be number 1.
It is intimidating.
Everyone has stood for this, by the way, as if for a judge. But he quietly mumbles into the mic, "Don't let me interrupt you," in a voice that sounds like Waltz is trying to combine Dawson's number 1 and Pleasance's Blofeld.
Maybe a little bit.
Everyone sits. Vogel continues that they are finishing a move to gain access to most of the world's intelligence, and will therefore always be a step ahead. As she says, all in German, they are winning.
They are winning.
A man named Guerra, played by Benito Sagredo, is asked to take Ciara's position and murder the Pale King for his first assignment. But first, because business practices are weird as fuck, Inspector, they ask if anyone wants to challenge him for the spot. So in walks the animal himself, Batista. The Leviathan is playing Mr. Hinks here. He's a combination of Oddjob and Jaws with a dash of Red Grant. He's 6'5", 270 pounds, so he makes Oddjob look like a tiny little boy.
Why didn't he get the role as Bane?
This guy is literally as tall as me and 100 pounds heavy.
Yeah, he would have like, ooh.
He looks wicked, has metal thumbnails for eye gouging, and doesn't speak, the mute aspect upping the creep factor. He slams Guerra's head into the table and gouges the man's eyes out, breaking the man's neck before tossing his body and taking his seat at the table, gently wiping his nails clean.
I guess if you're mute, how else are you going to show that you object?
I object. He's dead. That's my objection.
Anybody else? Anyone?
The shadowy number 1 starts saying, "It's funny. Mexico rang a distant bell. And now, this evening, it makes perfect sense. Welcome, James. It's been a long time. What took you so long?" And out of the shadows turns number 1 and looks up directly into the upper level exactly where Bond is and stares at him through the crowd, smiling, and says, "Cuckoo."
Yeah, like, what?
The first time I heard that, I was like, why the fuck did he do that?
Yeah.
Bond turns to egress, and the Russian Dorgoon is there taunting. "Ciao, Mickey Mouse." So Bond uppercuts his ass and tosses him over the ledge. Thud.
Yeah, don't talk. He's a trained assassin. Just punch him, grab him, shoot him.
Bond dives out of a window and slams into a metal roof structure. He full-on Tom Cruise sprints while being shot at and dives again from the false roof to the ground rolling. Weren't you all old with knackered knees? You've literally never ran this fast before, and now you're jumping off 2-story buildings again.
I told you, just, training, staying in shape, cut back on the alcohol, like one less drink.
Saying your prayers, eating your vitamins.
Right? Taking your vitamins. You're fine. You're fine. You can walk that shit off.
Bond runs to his DB-10 and drives off his goons, fire in vain, when behind him roars Mr. Hinks in a 2014 Jag CX-75. The chase really had Daniel and Drax screeching through the streets of Rome, through St. Peter's Square, and down the steps of Scolo di Pinedo.
I like the fact you called him Drax.
They pop berms and drift corners. Hinks catches up, and Bond preps a rear weapon to fire, but there's no ammo loaded. Cute gag. He stole the car, it wasn't ready. But Carter was there to pick it up when Q discovered Bond took it. So you're telling me that he was waiting to the last second to arm it and was going to do it himself? It's not incredibly unbelievable, but it is really odd.
Or they were going to give me an unarmed car, set me up to get killed.
See?
Did you think about that?
See?
That's what I did. See, I'm glad for the bottle of champagne.
A bottle of Dom is better than a death sentence.
Bond might have saved my life.
Bond hits a switch labeled Atmosphere in the opening trumpets of Frank Sinatra's New York, New York blast, as a screen displays music for 009 enabled. It's a dumb bit, but this film does need all the levity it can get.
And I don't know why Q would get the idea that I'm into Frank Sinatra, but whatever.
You said once you enjoyed Big Band, and he just Frank Sinatra every time since then. Don't you remember the Christmas party?
More like Cherry Poppin' Daddies, come on.
Bond drives off a raised curb and through the top of a parked car. Hinks follows. Bond whips into an alley. Hinks follows, destroying a row of motorcycles. Then, Bond gets stuck behind an oblivious opera fan in a Fiat smart car. So Bond noses the Fiat and pushes that tiny piece of shit speedometer to heights it never dreamt of. 80 miles per hour.
Now then, there are some Fiats that can go over 80.
Bond pushes the car into a parking spot in the bit where it slows to a stop, but barely hits the pole, and his airbag goes off.
I know, what is it, a Pinto?
No, then it would have exploded.
I know.
Cue audience laughter. Is what they hoped for, I'm sure.
This movie is like got moments where it's pretty cool, and then it's got moments where it's Roger Moore. And that's no knock to Roger Moore, because he's got a couple good movies, but there's a couple movies where there was clownish.
At least Roger Moore was kind of funny.
Sometimes. Triple Take Pigeon?
This movie is never funny. Not once.
Not once.
And it does try.
Not once. I can honestly tell you I don't have a single one-liner by this point of the movie.
Bond calls Moneypenny mid-chase to tell her what he heard. Hamburg, Tunisia, and Mexico City were all linked by this one organization. Then we have another ham and cheese moment where Moneypenny's boyfriend wakes up and she covers that her boss lost his credit cards. Bond is all, well, who's that then? A friend at this time of night? It's called a life, you should live it. And I get where they were going with his jealousy, but her quip back just ruined it. Made it less about repressed feelings and more of a lame joke.
Yeah, well, when your side piece is not your side piece anymore, you get a little jelly.
She never was his side piece. Bond only flirted the teasy way with 3 girls in the entire Craig run. And those 3 girls are the one that he had and lost, the one he'll never have, and the one he ends up with.
Yes, I know.
By the way, she apparently just now gets to looking into what he wanted and says the Pale King is Mr. White from Quantum, last seen 4 months ago in Alsace, Austria. Bond and Hinks keep up the high-speed chase. Moneypenny raids her fridge.
Yeah, and
Bond asks her to run a check on the name Franz Oberhauser and to check the files for before and after his death, which confuses Moneypenny and us. This is also the first we're hearing of the name, though remember Hans Oberhauser adopted him, and there was the burned head boy in the photo, so we can guess that Franz was Hans's kid. One's Hans, and the other's Franz, and they're here to pump
you up, you little girly man. Only if you had a keen eye in the movie theater would you ever get that, and that's what makes this movie stupid. They spent 0 time setting up the integral hook of this movie, and it makes it fall flat. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm your brother.
Oh yeah, I'm your brother.
And not give the audience some kind of, I don't want to say exposition, but you got to give them something other than some small print and a burnt up photo. Who the fuck is Franz Overmeyer?
It's because back then they wanted to do the same things they'd done before, but put slight twists on him, like Benedict Cumberbatch is Khan. But he's not Khan. We swear he's not Khan. Okay, he's Khan.
He's Khan.
Twist we never saw coming. Oh, wait, we all saw it coming.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but he's definitely Khan.
Craig's Bond always had M getting bothered at night at home. Well, she's dead, so let's bother Eve. Next time, we'll do this again with Q, to continuing diminishing returns. Punchy score for this bit, though.
It is. It's nice.
After driving down the steps, they ride along the Tiber and up an embankment, till Bond flips a flamethrower exhaust gadget and cover Hinks's Jag in flames. Bond finally uses the ejector seat as intended to unceremoniously jump the DB-10 into the Tiber at the 15th century Pont Sisto. I told you weren't getting that car back.
I knew it. I had a bottle of champagne. I was like, I'll never see that car.
Hinks steps out of his flaming Jag and watches the Aston sink. We then cut to Bond, landing in the streets, ditching his chute, and straightening himself, as he does, to the quiet, cheeky woodwind Bond theme hit.
Always. You can't hit the ground and not straighten your suit.
We cut back to Moneypenny, translating an article on Hans and his son Franz, having been feared dead in an avalanche. Obviously, the boy survived and is running the world's largest clandestine organized crime racket. The son of the guy who adopted Bond. What are the odds?
What are the odds?
About
1 to 1.
Cutting then to Tokyo, very obviously a Pinewood set with composited skyline, as C sells the delegates of multiple countries that they need more surveillance to unite the intelligence services of the world to be a global power. An unelected one, M worries aloud to Tanner, who is pulling up an article on Bond's crash in the Tiber. And who got this shot? From where? When was the car upside down like this? It wasn't. We watched it sink.
Yeah. This movie lacks structure, is what it lacks.
It lacks basic care.
Yes.
Maybe that's why it feels like a cash grab to you, even though it was like 3 years later in the next Bond film.
Right. Because, yeah.
Because it feels like they don't care.
They don't care.
The 9 countries vote, but it has to be unanimous, and South Africa says no. In front of C and M seated behind them conveniently. So now C knows who to pressure. Again, not a spoiler if the trailer ruined it.
Well, yeah. Again, not a spoiler if the trailer ruined it.
Tanner asks M if they're sure Bond is in London, and M looks pissed. Why would a car being in a river be international news? And why would you immediately think it has to be Bond and not a drunk rich asshole? A dude wrecked a McLaren in my state a couple of years ago and just abandoned it. It happens.
Yeah, they probably found that owner.
M calls Q. Please tell me 007 is in London. Oh yes, let me just go check. Because if he isn't, you're in deep shit. Q chuckles nervously and M tells him he has precisely 10 seconds. Q sees Bond is in Austria and tells M he's in Chelsea.
But why would he lie? He's already in trouble.
You're only making it worse. You're old and smart enough to know better.
Right. I would say, oh shit, and then hang up.
Exactly, because then it would make it look like all I did was forget to check on him periodically enough.
Right.
But I'm not involved.
But I'm not involved.
M says he'll want eyes on him when he gets back, and Q shits himself.
Yep.
We then cut to a Land Rover commercial in Austria.
Land Rovers are sweet.
Bond drives up to and boats across Lake Altisay. He approaches a cabin on the lake and cocks his weapon before entering. The place is near derelict. Crows fly at him from inside. Crows symbolically meaning danger or death, but also intelligence.
Crows are Odin's messengers.
Bond finds a false wall behind a mirror and makes his way into the basement. It's decked out with monitors playing the news, random clutter, and a man sitting next to his giant jugs of piss. And I'm not kidding, they put his pee jars in the movie.
Well, they wanted him to have that real Howard Hughes feel.
We then see Mr. White, and damn, he looks like shit. He has an IV bag and just says, "Make it quick." "Upstairs, Mr. White," Bond commands. Upstairs, they sit at a chessboard, and White admits he never guessed Bond would be the guy. Bond drops the ring in front of White. White says he found thallium in his phone last month. It's done its job, and he's here to die. White objected to the human trafficking and is being killed for it. It's also implied that White was shuffled off mostly as he was part of the now shuttered quantum wing of Spectre.
Yeah, once that ring was over, everybody involved was dead.
Loose end.
Yeah.
They severed that tentacle.
That's why there's only 7?
Maybe that's why there's only 7 in the film's logo. I think we're giving them way too much credit, but it works.
But it works.
Bond demands, "Tell me where he is." And White screams, "He's everywhere!" In a trailer line / verbal villain fluff.
Isn't he the same guy who said we have people everywhere? He's already done that line.
See, it's kind of like poetry, how it rhymes.
Yeah, no. Shut up, George.
He's dying. There's no reason not to sick Bond on Spectre and have your enemies just try to kill each other. No, he's protecting someone, and Bond learns it's his daughter and offers to protect her. He gives his word. Your word? The word of an assassin? Bond pulls his gun out and places it before White, saying, "That's my word." It's almost a reverse of the pre-title for Casino Royale.
Mm-hmm. It's almost a reverse.
White shakily picks up the gun. This game of chess is heating up. All jokes aside, how blunt is having this match over a literal chessboard?
It's pretty blunt. And I said the same thing when I was watching this. I was like, really?
It's not exactly subtle.
Right?
White cocks the gun and aims at Bond, who doesn't move. White drops his hand. "L'Americaine," he says. "You save her, and she could take you to l'Americaine." White tells Bond to go to the Hoffler Clinic, calls him a kite dancing in a hurricane, and then Bud Dwyer's himself.
Jesus. Yes, he does. You know what would have been better, now that I'm thinking about it in hindsight? If we had just put the gun on the chessboard at the beginning in between them, and then they played and had that conversation, right?
It would have had the exact same effect, but it would have felt stronger, so I agree with you.
I mean, if you're going to have the chessboard there, they should have played chess.
If you're gonna go for it, like, have them play it.
Right. Do it.
At this point, it's like we know what you're saying. It's literally there for no reason but to say it, so it's almost more obvious.
Right. You might as well have just had them playing chess.
Could have felt like one last battle of wits, you know?
Right. Exactly. One last battle of wits.
I don't know if you noticed, but Bond has gotten to where White's act makes him look away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Daniel understands the continuity of his character, and Bond has been different.
That's Daniel understanding the growth of his character, even if Mendez doesn't.
Right.
Bond grabs the ring, closes White's eyes, and grabs his Walther.
That's Bond with remorse right there. He didn't have that in the first 2 movies. He didn't develop that until the 3rd movie.
I think he started developing it at the very end of Quantum of Solace, actually. It was a big part of what he learned from that movie.
That's fair. I'll give you that. That is fair.
Cutting to the new C Tower, the interior of which is the real-life London City Hall. Mostly funded by a benefactor, this will apparently be the most sophisticated data-gathering facility in history. M calls it George Orwell's worst nightmare, and C's just glad he likes it.
Because I'm a cunt.
C is hella obvious when he says it's only a matter of time till the South Africans see the light and change their vote.
Oh, yeah. I guess because, I mean, if you look at the movie and everything, I guess putting him in the trailer is not such a bad idea because they did such a horrible job with the conceal and misdirect. You might as well, right?
M is concerned with the big data and who will have access. C equivocates that the 00 program is archaic. M reiterates Bond's point to Q from the last film, telling C that a license to kill is also a license not to kill.
Gotta be a human element.
C sighs. "I didn't want to do this, but you still can't control your agents." He plays a recording of Bond and Moneypenny's phone call from the chase, patting himself for his total surveillance. But M is more pissed at him for this breach of trust.
Oh, man, I would be so pissed off.
"You watch MI6 agents? We watch everyone." Yeah, this is already screaming every red flag, but to the movie's credit, M sees them.
Yeah, I would punch that little shit in his face.
Cutting to Hinks, finding White being consumed by the crows. He sees the camera and goes to investigate. So we cut to a Fairchild Dornier flying to Hoffler Clinic.
It is Piz Gloria, isn't it?
In theme, in spirit.
Yeah. I can't understand why Bond would leave trace evidence like that behind, knowing full well he just told this man he would do his best to protect his daughter. Why wouldn't you destroy and erase all of the obvious camera equipment that you knew was there? Again, this movie has Bond doing stupid shit that no agent in his right mind would do.
Mm-hmm.
But only in the spirit of keeping the movie moving. I hate that.
The glass-walled Hoffler Clinic is the 5-star Das Central Hotel in Solden. The Glass Cube is the hotel's Ice Cube restaurant, and yes, that really is its name. You know what's really trippy is when Bond looks out the Fairchild's window, we get an insert of what he's supposed to be looking at, and the insert is of the exact same plane he's supposedly in taxiing on the runway. He's literally watching himself taxi on the runway.
Oh, really?
From above.
Huh.
It's a bit of a goof, but this movie's full of them.
Yeah.
You know what else is odd is you actually have to walk through sub-zero temperatures to get to this treatment clinic, but whatever.
But whatever. You guys don't have a van?
A tunnel? One of those little walkways from the airport?
A fucking golf cart with a heater in it. Nothing?
Something?
Snow machine? Nothing?
I didn't know I had to be proficient in mild hiking to go get treated. Inside, Bond walks into the office of Dr. Madeline Swan, played by Lea Seydoux. Madeline, a name whose meaning derives from Mary Magdalene, and Swan means intelligent and observant. But I think for this film, it's more of an association with the color white.
Since Mr. White was her dad.
I think that's literally as far as they were really meaning that.
Yeah.
She tells Bond to sit and finishes her audio notes in French. He's there, under the guise of an eval. She lowers the shade as the view can be distracting, but he hadn't noticed the landscapes, if you catch his drift.
Ba-dum-bump.
She asks him questions, but he says, yeah, enough of that. How do you go from Oxford and specialized centers to this place at the end of the world? Are you hiding? She tightens, tries to regain control, saying she's asking the questions. He left his occupation blank on his prelim form. She asks why, and he says, so matter-of-fact and nonchalant. Well, it wouldn't look good on the form. Why not? I kill people. She freezes, and he says, small world, huh? She faces forward, drops any pretense of guard, and says, where is he? Bond says dead, 2 days ago. He watched him kill himself. And you came all the way here just to tell me this? I came to tell you your life is in danger, and I need your help. He says he swore to protect her, but she doesn't believe him, asking what he's getting from this, and Bond says, to find L'Américaine. With this revelation, she now regains understanding and control over him, and says this interview is over. Get out, or I'm calling security. Bond thanks her, and heads down to the Ice Cube bar for a nice hard Vesper. Something to warm his bones. But I'm sorry, sir. They don't serve alcohol here.
It's a treatment center. He orders a drink.
So Q magically appears behind him saying he'll have a digestive enzyme shake.
I was going to say, how did Q know where he was, but I forgot about the magic blood.
The magic blood. It's magic. Don't question it. You can't question it because they said they have magic blood.
It's magic blood.
If only that magic blood would do anything and everything and not just a couple things, we couldn't say anything about this movie because he's got magic blood.
Because he's got magic blood.
He's super strong. He can't die. He teleports.
He's got magic blood. It's the nanites.
If you've come for the car, I parked it at the bottom of the Tiber. Oh, no worries, Dick. It was only a 3 million pound prototype.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that. I'm probably going to get fired, but cool.
Why are you here, Q? He's here because he ran away from M2, and the only way he can go back and keep his balls is to bring Bond back with him. Bond knows what he saw in Rome, though, even if they don't believe him. Q says, that's it. I gotta tell M what's up. Bond says, just find out what you can from this ring, and then you're out. Giving him the Spectre ring, while upstairs, Swan is being approached by people in her office. It's behind the shades, and it seems sus.
It is definitely sus. And if Bond were paying attention, he'd be up there already, but he's not.
Security comes to escort Bond out. Bond gets Q's hotel as he leaves, and the barista finally has that enzyme shake. Do me a favor and throw that down the toilet. Cut out the middleman. Bond is being escorted out, but sees Swan being taken as well. He also sees Hinks up there with her. So now, it's on.
Like Donkey Kong.
Bond beats up the scrawny security sweater and gut punches the other. Then the first sweater tries to get up and Bond just holds out a finger. No. Stay.
Bad dog, stay.
Bond rushes for Swan, who's taken to a 2015 Range Rover Sport. Hinks drives off with the woman, and Bond disarms a goon before shooting the man. So now, the chase is on. But first, Q gets into a gondola and opens his laptop to scan the ring when a man gets in across from him. Q doesn't pay him any mind, but the man creep stares Q the whole time.
Right? You don't notice this bald-headed, fade Roth-looking motherfucker sitting straight across from you?
Cutting back to Hinks when Bond flies over his rover in a Briton-Norman Islander. Bond literally flies alongside the rover and opens his window, dead staring Hinks before firing at him. Bond's .32s bounce off the magic bulletproof glass and paint, but Hinks's AF Dueler prismatic blasts 45 cal rounds through Bond's plane as if paper.
Oh Lord, it's the DBDE, popularized in Kick-Ass.
Bond peels off, and we cut back to Q, finding trace DNA of Ciara, Silva, Green, and Lashif, all on the ring. Doesn't show Mr. White or Bond who recently touched it, but okay. Also, what the fuck? Oberhauser knew he'd go kill Ciara and planted all this DNA on his ring?
Time out, but I don't think computers work like that. I don't think you can take DNA samples. I don't think that's how that works.
That's 100% never gonna work like that.
Matthew, what kind of computer is that?
A magic one. It's full of magic blood.
I'm not even talking about the fucked up plan of planting all this DNA on that one ring to tie all this stuff together.
You're just talking about the trackpad that magically can scan and analyze DNA somehow.
Yes.
No, I know what you're talking about.
What the fuck was that?
Sam Mendes has no idea how we analyze DNA.
Jesus Christ. I was like, what? I understand we're in the Q branch. I understand they have some high-tech shit. They have an open-air mass spectrum analysis. Like, even if it did work, how does it not analyze everything else?
Back with Q, he reaches the bottom of the mountain, but another goon stops him from leaving the gondola when a group of snowboarders enter as well. So now, Q is about to head back up with a crowd and two goons he's suddenly very aware of.
Yeah, one of them's got his hand in a pocket finger gun style.
Bang.
Bye-bye.
Cutting back to Hinks, they cut up a mountain road lined with trees. Bond lines up in front of them and starts descending. Hinks fires. Bond bounces on a goon rover defender and causes the rest of the convoy to dodge. Chaos and an explosion ensue, which can be heard from the gondola about to leave. When people turn their heads, Q darts for the door.
Sharp move.
Meanwhile, Bond is coming in low again, but this time from the rear. His wings get clipped off and the plane slides on its belly. This was done with models of various sizes, and with full-size fuselages, they just push down mountainsides, sometimes with Craig legit in it. And I work with people who complain if ketchup gets on them.
Yeah. I'm not going to get into the physics of this scene. I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is, a spectacle.
The plane slams into the back of the rover. They turn, though, so Bond full throttles one engine and hard rudders to turn before smashing into the tree line. He slides further down the mountain and through a bloody barn before ramming the second disposable goon defender. The rover hits the defender and the fuselage slides to a stop. Bond kicks the door off and runs to the rover, shoots the driver in the head before grabbing Swan as Hinks lays out cold through the windscreen.
Does this scene remind you of something you would have seen in the Brosnan era?
Yeah.
Me too.
She shoves him off, screaming for him not to touch her, before just walking down the mountain in a power suit.
Yeah. Where are you going to go?
Where are you going? He looks confused, then chases her like, are you nuts? But she's not nuts, and it never even crossed his mind that he might have led them to her. He's no time for this, and she needs to tell him everything about L'Americaine, and she just rages, go to hell. As we'll find out, she knows that he's clueless of what he's asking about, and it's also very personal. But he's trying to help her also, and he's her best chance at staying alive. This seemingly empty village, by the way, is the village of Obertiliac. We cut to the pair arriving at Q's hotel room, which, like the gondola scene, was likely filmed in the same glass-walled hotel as Swan's office. The Solden town also has a Spectre museum with items including Bond's plane.
Including whose plane? Bond's plane?
The one he just crashed in.
Oh, that plane.
Bond enters, and Q is nervous. He needs to talk to Bond alone, but Bond says she knows. Q says, no, I'm sorry, you're onto something. He shows Bond a screen that has past villains and hinges such as Patrice as tentacles leading to Oberhauser as the head of the ghoulish cephalopod.
So, this is where it kind of all falls down for me. You're saying this guy has been manipulating Bond since Casino Royale. It would be pre-Casino Royale because he put Vesper to handle that money. That's what they're trying to say, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, let's really think about this. Because if what they're saying makes logical sense, this goes all the way back to Vesper's boyfriend.
Look, man, he knows. He's got the shinin'. It's the only way all that DNA got on the ring. He just knows what's going to happen.
I guess.
Bond asks what the organization is called, and Swan says Spectre. It's called Spectre. Q shows Bond a news report of a terrorist attack in Cape Town, which we know is C manipulating the South Africans. Bond tells Q to go back to London, and Swan finally reveals L'Américaine isn't a person. It's a place.
L'Américaine. You would assume it was in America.
No, I would assumed it was in France, but, French Morocco works too. Cut to Tangier, Morocco. The pair walk the streets to a small hotel called L'Américaine. Swan gets the room her father would always get and enters with Bond. Bond spends hours tearing the place apart, but only finds some aged liquor. Swan goes off on dad hate, and James actually defends the man a little. He did genuinely care about his daughter, and was dying for taking a moral stand.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
She's drunk and stands to go to bed, falling into his arms. But she says no taking advantages of my daddy issues. You just keep watch. But she's smitten. She just doesn't want to admit it to herself yet. Her behavior betrays her, though.
Right? She totally says no and does everything except take her clothes off right there in front of him.
Don't you dare take me. It would be so sexy if you did, but don't you dare do it.
Don't you do exactly what I want you to do right now, because I'm drunk.
Don't you take advantage of me when I'm drunk and helpless and on this bed. She reverts to French and asks herself what she's doing there before repeating the line, to liars and killers everywhere. We cut to later, and Bond wakes conveniently as a mouse scurries across the floor. Bond then goes full American and draws on the rodent.
Is that full American?
That's full American, baby. You have met at least one person in your life who has decided to take on a mouse with a handgun.
Sad, but true. Not only have I met a person, but I was birthed by them.
Who sent you? Bond interrogates. The mouse, remembering his training, holds firm, giving nothing. Who are you working for? Bond demands, but the mouse scurries off into a seam in the floor trim. Bond suddenly realizes there's something behind that wall. Bond stands, swigs his drink, and punches through the wall. Swan wakes and, hey, baby, nice nighty.
I want to make a note here. Yeah, that was a pretty confident punch. Had he been wrong, he would have broken his hand for sure. Because he did not hesitate. He put a full...
He did a few knocks to test for studs and hollow points.
Anything that was harder than whatever that was.
And if there was a pipe on the other side.
Right?
Swan said this was her parents' love spot. The place they always took her for family time. A second home. And now she's discovering with Bond, from him, that it was all a lie. This was a command center, another info hub for White. Well, it wasn't all a lie, as Swan finds a corkboard with her childhood photos pinned all over it.
It was his go bag. This is the place he always came to. Only him and his wife and his daughter knew what it was. I'm sure that's just where he kept everything he needed in case he needed to go on the run.
That's exactly what it is. That's why it was a lie. It wasn't family cherished vacations. It was him hiding out in his safe spot and keeping up with work. He was in there coordinating assassinations or hiding out from doing one while his daughter thought it was the family's second home. The crazy thing is, in the movie, she specifically says that her mother and her father would come to this spot. They loved it. They came here until they had her, and they brought her there until the divorce. And her father still kept coming there.
Yes.
I mean, I guess we could save this for the next movie, but I don't think that they got divorced.
Yeah. Either she's lying or misremembering or something, because the story she tells in the next movie doesn't say anything about divorce.
I mean, unless they like brought her there until she was 5 or 4 and they like but then it doesn't make sense. Like she wouldn't remember like any of that.
No.
It wouldn't be like a core memory. Oh, we came here so many years. They loved each other so much.
Doesn't she say her mom died when she was very young?
The movie will start with her mom being murdered when she's like fucking 5.
That's right. Just goes to show you how much this movie sucks.
I don't know if you can even blame this movie for something. They said, hey, I got divorced, and the next movie completely ignored it for a punchier start.
Whose fault?
Everyone's.
Yeah.
In all the papers, guns, passports, and the like, Bond finds some VHS tapes and one marked Vesper Lind interrogation. When Swan catches him looking at it too long and asks about it, he dismisses it verbally and physically before she gives him a paper from the corkboard. From it, Bond gathers coordinates and punches them into a computer. He says White was looking for Oberhauser and sent Bond to finish the job. Swan's coming too. For closure. That's a shitty reason to walk into a lion's den, but it's better than no reason.
It is a stupid reason to walk into a lion's den, but I guess revenge makes you stupid.
Yeah, at this point, we've literally accepted the girls coming along for no reason a few times, so I don't care anymore.
I would like to think that she's an assassin's daughter. She's been through some kind of shit like this before. Because she seems like she's been through some kind of shit like this before.
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
So cutting back to London, M runs into C, and there's a quick Mike Wilson cameo. The old guy in the hall here.
Oh, I missed him.
I missed him in Quantum of Solace as the guy who was sitting in the lobby when he got the briefcase from the hotel. He was not in Skyfall, but I did forget to say that his son was in the Scorpion bar scene.
Oh, was he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right on.
C held another vote and didn't bother informing M. And, after suffering a recent supposed terror attack, South Africa is all on board for more security now. The system, Nine Eyes, is officially sanctioned and will go live in less than 3 days. The collective intelligence of 9 countries, including Britain, is about to be completely open for Spectre to exploit. What's worse, C convinced the Home Secretary to shutter the 00 section immediately.
Yeah, you don't need those old archaic spies running around. Why would you need eyes on the ground?
You got drones.
That makes no tactical sense. You have drones. You don't need eyes on the ground. You know, if that were true, the CIA would be out of business.
We have cameras on the ground. It's fine. It's not personal. It's the future. And you're not. You're a cocky little bastard, aren't you? M snaps before assuring C that this isn't over. The corridors of the intelligence headquarters are those of the Freemasons' Hall in Covent Garden. This is another familiar location seen in Spooks, Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes, The Hitman's Bodyguard, Hobbs and Shaw, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and Green Zone.
So this place makes all of its money by letting people film movies there.
If you are sci-fi or fantasy or anything close to that, we have a spot for you.
We have a spot for you. Just off Hogwarts.
Yeah. We cut to Morocco and Bond aboard a train. So you know there's going to be a fight.
Oh, because it's on a train. Of course there's going to be a fight.
The desert railway, aboard which Bond discovers there's little he can teach Dr. Swan about firearms, is the Oriental Desert Express. As stated, he tries to teach her to use a gun, but she refuses to indulge him. He begs her to make herself less of a liability, and she expertly removes the clip and chambered round. She then tells about how a man came to kill her father, and she shot him as a child. She hates guns now.
Got that Quigley syndrome. Just because she doesn't use them doesn't mean she doesn't know how.
Why can't it be like, oh, someone murdered my mom with guns, I don't like them. I guess they weren't thinking ahead.
No, they weren't thinking ahead because, they weren't. And this again is the failing on the next director. Maybe he said he watched the movie and then when he was writing the script, he got them mixed up.
We could blame the screenwriters and even if you want to, the director of the next movie. And I was at first, but I'm like, you know what? Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, maybe it is this movie's fault. Because if you were supposed to build off of this and with him driving off into the sunset with her,
right,
the way he did, and with this being as continuous as it was, like how else were they supposed to? Maybe they should have made her more than two-dimensional. She's very much set up for one movie. Her stories don't lead anywhere. They only lend to this story.
I mean, you're right. She doesn't have a future. They don't set her. They just set her up as just another Bond girl.
Yeah, that's the problem. She's not set up to be in another film. Everything about her is set up to be in this film.
Right. If they had set it up like the relationship they set up between him and Vesper, more believable. But they didn't. They tried to, but it didn't work.
I feel like the setup was all fine. I feel like it's honestly just the way she's built, the way she's written her backstory. Everything about her, like I said, it just feels like it all lends to this story. And so, like, there's nothing else for her after it. And that's why everything's so conflicting later on, because we have to ignore, like, this key point. This is why I don't like guns. It's not that my mom was murdered by one. It's that I had to defend myself with one. Well, that doesn't make sense. I feel like that would be the more impactful story, like your mom being murdered. But, you know, like, we had to get there later because, like I said, she's just not that fleshed out here. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's a mistake on this movie crew's part. Because they definitely set her up to, like, come back. So they definitely should have fleshed her out more.
Yeah. And they had plenty of opportunity to do so, but, you know.
It's just weak writing. Like, all her backstory, like I said, it's just plain and simple. All they cared about was writing for this movie. Whether or not they planned on kicking her forward.
Right.
Lazy, bad writing.
Yeah.
Cutting back to London, Moneypenny and Q go to get the despondent M back on side as he mopes in Rule's restaurant. The oldest restaurant in London, having opened in 1798. It's almost as old as America.
That's a pretty old restaurant.
Q tells him he tracked Bond to an empty desert in Africa, and they found a compound out there with satellite photos. M says, "It's over. Delete the smart blood files so no one else can track him. That's the best we can do for him now. He's on his own." Cutting back to Bond in the diner car, he is dressed to the nines, and she comes out looking like a 10. They order martinis, and she asks why he kills people, why he lives alone and in constant vigilance. He doesn't believe he ever had a choice. He's never thought about it and doesn't know if he can. She says there's always a choice, and they drink to that. When Hinks comes up out of nowhere and kicks the table away, Bond jumps up with his gun, but Hinks holds his arm, firing into the roof. Hinks shoves Bond, lifting him with one hand by the neck. Batista is so fucking huge.
He's a big man. But my only question is, why waste your first attack on the table? Bond wasn't ready. He only noticed him at the very last second.
What, are you getting all your critiques from pitch meetings?
I mean, I don't, I mean, just...
Like, who cares if he kicked the table? Like, he could have dove on him. He could have grabbed his head and slammed it down. He could have punched him in the back of the head. Or, in his confidence, and considering his weapon is to gouge you by the eyes after grabbing you from the front, and given that he's like 6'5" and 50 pounds heavier than Daniel, he probably wanted to kick the table that's bolted in front of him out of the way so he could grab him, lift him from the front, and gouge his fucking eyes out.
That, or he wanted to kick the table to eliminate an attack from Madeline Swan. Because that just occurred to me as well. She was sitting across from him.
She got knocked back by that.
Maybe kicking the table was probably the right move.
It was actually a really good idea. It neutralized both of them for a second. It definitely sets him up for his prime attack as well.
There you go.
Wearer didn't fight at all. He stood there and took it. When James started, squirming and fighting back, Hinks had to throw him around a little bit.
I bet you there'll never be another hostile takeover at that table. Anybody who walks up to them is going to get immediately stabbed in the neck. Next guy, like, I'm not waiting for you to stick your thumbs in my eyes, homie.
Well, that's never happened. You're never, like, he's walking up slowly. Okay, just shot him. Indiana Jones.
I'm just going to shoot him right there. Yeah.
Bond knees and punches. Hinks tosses him. Bond kicks. So Hinks flips and shoves. Swan tries to hit Hinks with their table stand, but Hinks no-sells it and backhands her. Go to sleep, bitch.
Go to sleep, bitch. I like the no-sell comment, because Batista's a wrestler.
Hinks manhandles Bond, ramming him through doors and into walls. This is if the Jaws train fight was taken as seriously as the Red Grant train fight. They're brutally destroying everything, including each other. The action's quick, but only to a believable point, not a frustrating one. The hits have all the impact. This fight is beyond badass.
This was one of the better choreographed one-on-ones in a Bond movie in a long time. And they utilized the space so well and efficiently. I loved it. And the way Batista just like, I'm going to utilize this space by throwing this dude into everything.
Throughout the course of which, Bond tosses liquor onto Hinks and eventually tosses a candle at him. With Hinks aflame, Bond grabs the roof of the car to kick Hinks, who just grabs Bond and throws him down. This has to be the best fight ever in a Bond film. It's definitely the best part of this film.
It is, by far. The skill of Batista, because, he's coming from that background, and the choreography of this fight is just on par.
It definitely plays into his strengths.
Right? Like, whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing with Dave Batista in this space.
It's better than Jaws. Tall, lanky dude lumbering around like Frankenstein.
It's better than Oddjob, too, like short, squat little dude lumbering around like Frankenstein.
Hinks takes off his blazing blazer. Bond attacks with an ice pick, but is tossed through the kitchen car into the mail car for his trouble. Hinks opens the train door and grabs Bond, but Swan has picked up Bond's gun and appears, shooting Hinks in the arm. Hinks chokes Swan and throws her into the metal wall. Bond strangles Hinks with a rope and beats him some more. Hinks tries to escape, but they knock a chain of kegs off the side, and Bond hooks the rope to them. They pull the rope around Hinks' neck, and he says his only word in the entire film, shit, before being torn from the car.
I still think it would have been better if he had said merde.
I don't disagree. Merde.
Oh, yeah, totally. 100%. If he's going to get one word, he should have said it in French.
It's so odd the way he said it, too, because they ADR in that line, and it's not Dave's voice.
It's really weird.
But regardless, the heroes sit panting, and Swan serves. What do they do now? They smile at each other. The film's refrain strikes up, and we cut to them, bursting into their cabin to get it on.
Da-dun, da-dun.
Even though they just destroyed half the train with witnesses, they're just going to pretend it never happened and go bang. Vigorously.
Like the conductor doesn't come question them. They don't stop the train at the next stop for the cops to get on. Like nothing happens.
All those people in the diner car are just going about their business. They're like, yeah, well, that happens all the time.
Just went back to their cabins and just like...
This is part of the show, right?
Yeah.
This dinner and a show. Wow. So avant-garde.
This is what happens when we get excited. And yeah. Did you see the fight in the bar car? Oh my God.
That was amazing. I love this train ride, you guys. I'm so drunk.
Oh, shit.
This is the third and final form of Bond's true loves in the Craig era. There was the one he couldn't keep, the one he'll never have, and the one he ends his life with. Alighting from the train in the middle of the Moroccan desert, they are met by a 1948 Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith, a nod to Karim Bey's car, which whisks them off to one of those wonderful hidden layers loved by Bond villains so much, this time hidden inside a meteor crater. But in reality, the impressive formation is an extinct volcanic crater, about 12 miles southwest of Erfurt, used in The Mummy as the lost city Hamunaptra.
We have another layer in a volcano crater, sorta. Let's just throw all of the Bond movies into one movie, shall we?
They built this entire place for this, because the sequence depicting its destruction used 8,418 liters of fuel and 33 kilograms of high explosives, earning it the Guinness World Record for the largest film stunt explosion in cinematic history, at least at the time.
It was the most glorious explosion I've ever seen in a film in my life. I only wrote one word. I was like, ooh, that was impressive. Holy shit.
But I digress. She's scared, and he holds her hand to comfort her. He's a rock. Arriving, they're greeted by Oberhauser's right hand, played by Gediminas Automatus. He politely welcomes them, and Bond smiles. They're glad to be there. And it sounds so pleasant and genuine, and it's fucking great.
No, he's genuinely pleased to be here because he's wrapping this up. He's like, he's been looking for this guy for a long time. I think he is genuinely glad to be there.
He has full confidence that nothing will happen to him consequence-wise because he knows he's in the most consequence-free movie of his entire run.
I think that confidence comes from just being James Bond.
He's like, shit, they might even drill into my brain and nothing's going to happen. Who cares? Let's go. Let's do this. I'm happy.
Let's do this.
Jeddah says, relax, and join the host for drinks at 4. They take Bond's gun in the most posh way possible and show them to their rooms. Nice rooms, separated, guarded, and with clothes on the bed. How very Dr. No. Bond scopes the layout of the facility and the wing they take Swan to. He then notices his childhood photo, unburned and framed, the Oberhausers and Bond. Her room is much of the same, just with a much better view. But she does have a childhood photo of her and her father framed in her room. I love how when Oberhauser realized they were coming, he just sent someone to Walmart for frames to use the photo center. Later, when appropriately dressed, they're led to a building and sent in alone. Inside, they find the iron remnants of the meteor that created the place, on display in an otherwise seemingly empty room. Bond whispers he thinks they're meant to be impressed, and yeah, you should. You are that meteorite, a super hard chunk of steel that hurtled blindly into someone's world, causing a giant hole so large that it was changed forever. What? You don't like that analogy? Fine, I guess he's like a fucking cuckoo bird then. From the shadows, we hear Oberhauser. You can touch it. No thanks, weirdo. Fucking perv. He steps out, continuing, It spent years up there, alone, silent, building momentum, until it chose to make its mark on Earth, a huge, unstoppable force. Bond interrupts, except it did stop, right here. Franz walks up to them and smiles. I can't tell you how much I've looked forward to this. He's even happy Swan is there. He hasn't seen her since she was a girl. He says he came to her father's house once. She says she doesn't remember that, and he says he does. Are they implying that he's the guy she shot as a child? Makes sense why he's happy to kill her then. Boo. He leads them to another building and exposits, and you get a good look at his jacket, very Dr. No inspired. Oberhauser says all of this is about information, like how Bond has to know the 00 program has been shuttered by now. So now, Franz is wondering why he came. I came here to kill you, and I thought you came here to die. I like that.
No, you've come to die.
It's a little Goldfinger-y.
It is very Goldfinger homage. As I said, this movie was, in its way, it was kind of a love letter to all the good movies that came before. Well, not good movies, but all the classic movies that came before it.
Other than Casino Royale, every single one of Craig's movies are literally homages to the entire franchise before them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Quantum did it. Mm-hmm. Skyfall did it.
Yeah.
Spectre's doing it. And No Time to Die will do it too.
The Spectre is probably the most egregious, though.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I feel like Spectre was just like almost Jurassic World level of nonstop homage, if you want to call it that, references. Yeah, it's just like straight references. This is an homage. This is a nice twist. I like when they're twisty and they change them up a little bit.
Yeah, because this is nice.
I don't mind the rooms. It's not like super obvious. I do think his jacket is incredibly obvious, but they didn't want to give him that traditional Dr. Evil look, you know, the traditional Blofeld look, which could be seen as that Dr. Evil look. So here he is looking more like Dr. No.
Well, yeah, it's definitely the Dr. Evil look now.
Franz leads them through a room filled with tech drones watching surveillance footage, and he stops to show Bond the monitors displaying MI6 CCTV, just as M gives his farewell speech to the troops. Franz mocks it, and we lay it all out. C works for this guy, and this guy paid for Nine Eyes. He blew up Cape Town, and he's reaping all the rewards. Franz calls himself a visionary, a revolutionary. And Bond scoffs the loony bins full of them. A twist on an old Connery line.
Is it? Which movie?
Dr. No.
Oh. Isn't this exactly what Silva was doing? Gathering all the intelligent...
He didn't care. Did you see that? He's like, look, we could do this. We could wreck this. Boop. Who cares? Blop. Who cares? I really just want to kill him, and then we can go destroy the world together. It was just a pure revenge plot. Silva was just a Joker ripoff because so much of Craig's era is inspired by Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. When you think about it, Silva was literally just Blofeld's IT guy who, like, went off on a revenge kick, one saved up paid vacation.
Makes sense.
Franzen breaks the franchise. You came across me so many times and never saw me. He takes credit for all baddies and missions past and all of Bond's pain. You interfered in my world, I destroyed yours. Or did you think it was coincidence all the women in your life ended up dead? Bond looks wounded by that, even looks at Swan guiltily, which she notices, but Franz keeps twisting the knife. It was me. It's always been me. the author of all your pain. This retroactively invalidates the past 3 films, watering them down into a gimmick for this one that sucks. It's literally a poisonous idea.
This plot hurts. It bothered me on so many levels.
He started pounding his chest and he said, "I'm coming."
Because you're right, not only does it invalidate the previous 3 movies, but it takes away any of the gravitas any of them had.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I'm saying.
It's so stupid. It could have been anything else.
I mean, obviously Quantum was going to be Spectre. Like, he could have taken credit for that. And with Quantum banking Lashif, but rolling Silva up in there too really just kind of stretches that believability. That's where it becomes ridiculous.
Well, yeah.
So everything, because he's everywhere.
He's everywhere.
He clicks off the monitors with his iPad, and the drones all stand at once and just be creepy buggers.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder how many times they rehearsed that. Sorry.
Oberhauser shows Swan the footage of her father's final moments. Bond screams to turn it off and charges Oberhauser, but is shinned with a nightstick. He is on his knees. She is staring at him, the drones, and all you can hear is White telling Bond, as we stare down at him on the floor and surrounded, that he's a kite dancing in a hurricane. And this time, he hears it, and a big part of him is starting to believe it.
Yeah, a little crack in the confidence level here.
I think he understands what Mr. White meant by that line right now, as exactly what he does not want to happen happens anyways. And he's powerless.
Yeah.
Oberhauser's point is that who are they to say what he's doing is wrong, using her father's own death leading to her meeting Bond as proof that horrors often lead to beauty. The old burn the forest to grow anew philosophy, which, while true in some aspects, is just him rationalizing being an evil dick.
Yeah, but we kind of got that from his whole setup. I mean, he's just doing it to be an evil dick. He didn't have to kill all of Bond's girlfriends. He could have still moved on with his plans.
Tit for tat.
Tit for tat.
He proves that point as well by having a goon pistol whip Bond in the back of the head and give him CTE. The screen goes black, and they play that high frequency of a Hollywood concussion.
The tinnitus sound.
We cut back into an extreme and overexposed close-up of Bond. He's strapped to a chair and coming back around. What's up with Craig's Bond and CGI lizards? This is 3 movies in a row now.
Is it? There was the
Lizard in the Desert and Quantum of Solace, the Komodo Dragon, and this one on the window. Oh shit, that white cat looks familiar. You know, I'm starting to suspect this Oberhauser guy may actually be Blofeld. But there's no way they'd do something so stupid and self-politic as to make Bond and Blofeld secret brothers, right? As Bond comes more into focus, so do we. The scene clears. The dialogue becomes audible. Bond struggles fruitlessly, and we hear Franz talking about how a man, and everything he is, his soul, is in his brain. A little bit of a duh moment, but humor him. He's going somewhere with this, I think. He's going to penetrate into Bond's skull, drilling the brain and destroying the pawns to fuck with his sight, hearing, and balance. Bond says, "Just do it, you bitch. It can't be worse than listening to you talk." So Franz obliges. The drill starts, and Swan comforts herself as Bond screams in agony. I'm genuinely amazed the drill is shown going into the proper place of the skull to do what Oberhauser described.
Yeah, it looks like they had some decent advisors on staff this time because, yes, everywhere he was poking is pretty much exactly where they should have been poking.
It's exactly where he said he was going to poke to do what he said he was going to do. I would have called him out on that in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
The drill is removed, dripping. So he just had his brain scrambled, literally. But as we'll see, spoiler, nothing ever fucking happens from this. And I mean absolutely jack shit. There was a drill power mixing his gray matter, no consequences. We don't even care. They just pretend it didn't happen because they're gonna.
Don't you know Bond's will is strong enough to
get his brain scrambled?
He's a creature of fucking prefrontal cortex and lizard brain.
Bond runs off the lizard brain and liquor.
Right?
It's literally instinct and alcohol.
Instinct and alcohol. That's it. That's it.
He doesn't need the pawns.
Because he barely uses it.
Do you think that controls my balance? Alcohol controls my balance, baby. Swan asks Franz why he's doing this, and Franz slides over to her. His father took James in for 2 years, taught him to ski, climb, and hunt, asked Franz to treat him like a brother. My little brother, he seethes. They formed quite an attachment, and jelly little Franz killed him. Bond is slowly undoing his watchband while Franz continues. You know what happens when a cuckoo hatches inside another bird's nest? Swan whispers that it forces the other eggs out. Yes, well, this cuckoo made me realize my father's life had to end, and in a way is responsible for the path I took, so thank you, cuckoo.
We go full circle to the cuckoo again, and the reference makes sense on an ornithological level. Maybe he's not wrong and everything, but it's a dumb fucking reference.
And it's so random in the beginning, too, until you get this explanation.
Right?
He says this with that Christoph Waltz charm and levity, but he looks at Bond with such bile and hatred. Bond just laughs and asks if he knows any other bird calls, using his first name. This stirs something in Franz. He rises and walks to Bond as that darn cat jumps on Bond's lap. And they are doing it, aren't they? Oh no, here it comes.
Because of course he can't be Franz Oberhausen, he had to fake his death. So of course he has a new name now, Matthew. And what other name would he pick?
Matthew Sedgwick.
Any other name.
Palpatine.
Any other name. They did not have to. I know they just recently acquired the rights. They did not have to bring him back.
Yeah, you didn't have to shove him in the first movie. You could have learned from your own franchise and built him up.
Right?
You guys obviously were setting up for one more movie. Blofeld should have been introduced at the very end of this movie as a stinger for the next one.
Right. And instead of setting up everything, set up everything that happened in this movie.
Bond says, help, pussy, in a way that calls back to Pussy Galore. Franz strokes his kitty, standing over Bond, saying, Franz Oberhauser died 20 years ago, James, in an avalanche alongside his father. The man before you now, and in your head, is Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Oh, no way. Only everyone saw this coming, and not just because of the cat.
Not just because of the cat. There's only one head of Spectre.
Hate to take this big reveal moment from them, but as hinted before, this is stupid. This is it. The moment the movie is irrevocably broken. Bear with me. Austin Powers is famously a parody of Bond, though much of its style and visuals came from the 1967 Casino Royale, which itself is a parody of the Bond films. The Powers films are parodies of a parody. Blofeld was larger than life and built up over 5 films before reveal. But with that chode McClory tying him up for decades, he became forgotten to the mass moviegoer. His Powers parody counterpart, Dr. Evil, had since become more recognizable than the icon he was parodying. This was not lost on the writers, who wanted to avoid the comparisons. First, not bald, and definitely not in a gray or silver suit. What about the scar? He needs the scar. Okay, fine, but he gets it at the end. Somehow, in distancing themselves from the original, they circled back around and landed on the parody. Dr. Evil and Austin Powers were also secret brothers. They compensated so hard to not self-parody that they literally did anyways. And for what? Think about it. Bond never cares. It's a one-line gimmick to his impact. And yeah, it explains Blofeld's hatred for Bond, but you don't need it. He hates Bond for ruining his life as a child and constantly ruining his plans as an adult. See, we don't need that first bit. And again, having him somehow controlling every aspect of every film before is an insult to the fans of those films. It retroactively invalidates them, bogging them down with plot holes and contrivances. The convolution level is off the charts, Captain, and it's just to cheaply make this Blofeld in one film as imposing to the audience as the OG Blofeld was after 5 films when we finally saw him, when they should have just leaned into Christoph Waltz's acting instead of the plot hole apocalypse caused by this verbal villain fluffing. Not to mention that it weakens and demotes every villain before into a pawn instead of what this guy is, the bad guy of their film. Just make Quantum a branch of Spectre that James effectively shut down single-handedly as previously seen. Make Blofeld impacted and annoyed to vitriol over this, but keep him a powerful manager Not some all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful guy that controls every impossible minute aspect of the films before to an unbelievable degree.
Oh, between that and this reveal is what really drug this movie down. This reveal had absolutely no weight to the story.
It doesn't impact it at all.
At all. It's not like the name meant anything to anybody except for the audience, and that's who it was served to.
The first time you saw that movie, you're like, Ober who?
Ober who? Who were the Oberhausens? Where did they come from?
Danhausen?
And then you're like, James Bond was raised by these people? Like, who the fuck are the Oberhausens? Why was this never, ever brought up?
Feels like it's something we would have learned by now.
Right.
Especially the last film, talking so much about his childhood.
Yeah. Seems like it would have been brought up. Ruined this movie.
Anyways, with that name drop, Bond quips, catchy. Blofeld informs Bond the next spot, the fusiform gyrus, when drilled, will remove Bond's ability to recognize anyone. Of course, the faces of your women like to change a lot, though, don't they, James? He chuckles. Blofeld looks at Swan, saying, "You won't know who she is. Just a passing face on your way to the grave." Now, the exact functionality of the fusiform gyrus is still disputed in real life, but there is relative consensus that it's involved in color processing, word recognition, and face and body recognition. Basically, the way you see colors, read words, and recognize people. Nothing to do with memory, by the way.
No.
So even if he can no longer visually process her face from a scrambled brain, he'd still remember the memories he had of her.
Right.
He'd just never be able to see a new face or see the old ones again. But he'd still know who she is.
Right.
Blofeld even repeats this threat to Swan after kissing his pussy, saying, "Bond dies not knowing who you are. But it's really he dies never seeing your face again, even looking right at it. I mean, not like any of this fucking matters." Blofeld calls out that Swan, the daughter of an assassin, would be the only one who could have really understood him. He hits the switch, and the drill reenacts the climax of Pi. Bond is getting scrambled, and yeah, it should very much immediately and permanently fuck up his higher vision processing. But it doesn't, and we'll never bring it up again, okay? Fuck you.
Ever bring it up again. No permanent damage is done.
At all. We're just drilling his fucking brain matter, okay?
Maybe the drill isn't quite long enough to cause permanent damage. It's just poking, just applying pressure to those spots.
You want to let me do that to you?
No, fuck no. Drilling through the skull hurts.
Swan runs to Bond and whispers, "I love you," which of course brings Bond back. Blofeld teases, "Do those blue eyes still recognize you?" And Bond whispers, he'd recognize her anywhere, and tells her about his watch. She kisses him, and he activates the watch timer for 1 minute before sliding it to her. Bond then gasps, "Tempus fugit." Blofeld says, "What?" And Bond repeats, "Doesn't time fly?" And Swan slides the watch under Blofeld, and holy shit, how does he have legs?
Right? It's like there's more, almost as much explosives as a claymore in that thing, the way that blew up.
Jesus Christ, that was like bigger than most landmines.
I was wondering what kind of explosive Q used in that watch, some new Q branch type shit.
What is in that?
Right? Because that much C4 wouldn't blow up that much.
No, hell no. That thing is, what is in that?
Right? That much Simtex wouldn't blow up that much. I can't think of anything that small that would blow up that much off the top of my head.
That was one hell of a concussive blast to throw him like that. And also, you didn't technically say time flies, James. You said it escapes, but semantics. With Blofeld's evil PlayStation destroyed, Bond is freed and Blofeld's fucked up. Bond embraces Swan and they cheese it. Bond kicks out a goon, taking his weapon and shooting 2 others with it, before casually firing backwards at more. He takes cover with Madeline and shoots some more goons, but they're pinned down, and she knows it. So he activates Bond mode and fires at some tanks, causing a nice Hollywood petrol explosion and spreading more fire throughout the facility.
Yeah, I thought those tanks were full of water. Turns out they were full of gasoline. Silly me, they're watering the grass with gas.
Gotta make them tough. They're out there in the desert, you know. You don't want to get addicted to water. You'll resent its absence.
You will resent its absence. Calm down, Immortan Joe.
Then Bond advances with her behind him, taking everyone out with surgical precision. And I mean everyone. He one-man Call of Dutied the entire base. They walk like bosses up to an MD-500 and turn to each other, blocked to frame the compound in the background. Bond says, "Let's go home." And the building explodes, as if on cue. Wait.
As if on cue.
Holy shit, that's huge. Ain't no way Blofeld lived that. Jesus Christ.
Well, if you look very, very closely during the explosion, Matthew, you will see a car or two driving away in the back corner of that explosion.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, but you gotta look close.
They had plenty of time to get to one. I mean, Bond got to the other side of the facility.
Can't remember if it was one or two, but there was definitely at least one vehicle leaving the scene of that explosion as it was exploding.
I'm serious. This was not only the largest explosion in a Bond film, it broke the record for biggest explosion in the movie industry up to that point. This one was nuts.
It was a hell of an explosion. It's impressive.
For Freedom units, it's 2,223 gallons of fuel and 72 pounds of high explosives.
That's a lot of gas. God damn.
But Bond says it's not over yet, and they take off in the helicopter. So we cut back to London via another establishing shot with that wheel they're so proud of.
The Great Eye. It's because there's a camera on the side of every car.
I believe that.
I believe it too.
Bond, Swan, and the beleaguered MI6ers hole up in a safe house, codename Hildebrand, which is a nod to Fleming's short story, The Hildebrand Rarity. That's the story they borrowed the Milton Crest character from for Dalton, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Though he was quite different, and Hildebrand in the story was a fish. This Hildebrand, however, was filmed just off the mall south of Trafalgar Square. Bond reports Blofeld dead, and that C was working for him directly, that they're exposed, that Blofeld built this, and they let him do it.
Yes, that's what he meant by it's not done, because he had to go get C.
They have until midnight to stop the Nine Eyes program from being launched. Bond and M will go see C, while Q hacks the system to stop it. That's the plan, anyway.
That's the plan. It's a good plan.
We get that moment. M says it's good to have you back, and Bond responds, "Sir?" They go to leave, but that's it. Swan's out. She can't go back to this life, and she won't ask him to change. He's stunned. She's breaking up with him, and it hurts.
Quite a bit. She's the first one he didn't lie to right out the gate, and she is the first one that didn't run away, didn't bolt. Oh, you're a killer?
So am I. Maybe.
Yeah.
She calls him a good man and walks off. Bond gets in a 2006 Jag XJ and rides off with M tossing him a glance, but Bond a stone. We then get an insert of Swan second-guessing her decision.
100%.
We also get an insert of Q hacking C's system by guessing his 8-character password, which I'm convinced was password. Q calls this impenetrable security, while instantly doing this, by the way. And you keep using this word. I'm not sure it means what you think it does.
I was thinking his password was I'm a cunt with 2 M's.
I'm a cunt 1 because I'm a cunt was taken. This also literalizes our ticking clock, which is now set for 32 minutes, when out of nowhere a 2005 Toyota Hilux T-bones the Jag into the scrapyard. The boys are out cold and Bond is abducted by 4 heavies with a prisoner transport. They throw Bond in and turn for M, but M's vanished. Tanner pulls into the alley with Moneypenny and Q, and they reverse out quickly, but not before being shot at, with Q's head being missed by inches. And that's the only guy who could really stop this.
Right? Right? Why would you turn passenger side facing the bullets?
Tanner is not a field agent.
Tanner's not a field agent. That's fair.
But Q really is the only person who can save the day. Bond is just out for punishment at this point.
Right? He just wants to beat that little cunt up.
We establish that M ducked off and is picked up by the MI6ers, and Bond was taken to the husk of Vauxhall Cross. And if you keep feeling that you're getting heavy Dark Knight vibes from this film, you aren't wrong. It was a direct inspiration.
I know. It's like at this point in the movie, I was like, am I watching Batman?
It's starting to feel like it big time at this point.
You're right. It was like, it's starting to feel a lot like I'm watching Batman.
When Bond's removed from the vehicle, he has a bag over his head. They try to push him, but he stands firm until he feels a gun next to his head. So he grabs it and shoots the 2 goons with it. You know, just trusting that that goon would put the gun to your head was almost as lucky as Patrice using special bullets that only 2 other people in the world used. What an amazing assassin. Or even Olivia Mansfield's M being in a hearing and not surrounded by agents at MI6 for Silver's plan. Ah, fuck it.
Did I mention how lucky Bond is?
Since Dr. No, we have gone out of our way to mention how many times he would be dead if not for a taxi that went by. That literally happened to Dr. No. Every fucking movie, it's like he's saved by luck.
He's the luckiest agent.
Bond snaps his zip tie wrist bindings, removes his hood, and looks up at his old home. He walks through the busted and completely open front entrance. And how is that not boarded off and sealed? Especially if it's wired to the gills with explosives for scheduled demo. Fuck it.
Okay, whatever.
Inside, we see this wall of fallen agents. Ronson from Skyfall's opener isn't on there. Neither is Fields, or Olivia Mansfield, or any of the names from the YouTube leak in Skyfall. Fuck you, Mendez. This was easy.
Right? You just put a bunch of names up there and not even... What about those guys? They didn't make the wall?
Literally every agent we've been introduced to that's died, none of their names are on there.
They've all been disavowed.
But it does have James Bond graffitied at the bottom with an arrow. Because, of course, Blofeld planned for Bond to kill the goons and come in alone.
How's he supposed to see that if there's a bag over his head?
Because Blofeld is clairvoyant. I've told you this.
I mean, I thought about that too. It's like, oh wow, he set this up for Bond to be in, but he kidnapped him and then they bagged him.
The only way any of this makes sense is if Blofeld is that X-Men that can see the future, but also is like depressing, despondently a slave to it. Even if he sees his own death, he's like, well, I have to march towards it.
Destiny. Yeah.
So the only way this movie works is if Blofeld specifically has that superpower.
Yeah, maybe they were supposed to take his hood off when they walked in here.
So Bond follows the arrow, and the others left around to lead him. I can't see shit in this sequence, and I hate it. So thankfully, we cut to C, panicking. He's rushing into his office and screaming into a phone to go back and find M. He needs them both. He sits at his desk to log into his system, but his password isn't working. C's been locked out, and the system is shutting down. Not a good feeling being watched, is it? M tosses from the shadows before reveal, taking a cue from Bond's playbook.
It's one of Bond's favorite things.
C is such a paper-thin bitch that the first swing he can think of is to say they're trespassing. Oh, big threatening volley there, C.
Right? Obviously, you're exposed. I mean, he's been sitting here the whole time. He heard you just say you sent a kill squad after them.
Trespassing is what you're leading with?
You're gonna just say they're trespassing? You're right? You're not gonna reach for your gun? This dude knows what's up.
That's like your girlfriend walking in and with your dick still inside another woman, you're sitting there saying, wasn't me.
Oh, honey, you're trespassing.
C gets his monologue, blaming the chaos of the world on spineless bureaucrats. Admits he is completely unable to grasp the concept of democracy, but then calls M the moron. C draws his desk gun on M and pulls the trigger, but M already removed the rounds. He calls C careless, and it was a missed opportunity after C called him a moron and clicked the trigger for M to say, I know where you keep your gun. Suppose that's something. And it would have been just as cheesy as what they did do, but it would have also been a callback.
Yeah, it would have been a beautiful callback.
It would have been just as cheesy as, well, C stands for careless.
It would have been better.
We cut to the dusty remains of the firing range from Skyfall, now with actual Bond paper targets. Bond continues forward, following the det cord like a river. They cut to a quick insert of Q saying, oh no, for a spot of tension, and then flash the ticking clock, now down to 5 minutes. Back with Bond, as he passes some holding cells with Xeroxes of previous villains, and also Vesper and Mansfield taped to the walls. He peeks around a corner and sees Blofeld just standing there, and Bond fires 5 rounds at the man. But there's a pane of bulletproof glass between them, and it cracks, suspiciously similar to the Spectre logo.
Yeah, almost like it was digitally done.
Stupid as fuck. That is pure cartoon.
It is pure cartoon. It was stupid.
And it's not like one frame or, you have to like watch the movie 50 times and slow it down to see Elvis in his underwear. It holds on it, and it's obvious, and it's stupid.
It's all of the above.
How did James not know that glass was there in his old office, but Blofeld did? Fuck it. Blofeld silently shows off his trademark scar, this time given to him by Bond, because fuck subtlety. If you notice, as they face each other, Blofeld's reflection floats over Bond's. A big point of this film plot-wise and a big part of the next one theme-wise. This is one of the smartest parts of the entire movie.
Christopher Waltz is a fantastic actor, and he did not do poorly in this role. It's just a stupid writing. It's not his fault. His acting was impeccable. If he was Blofeld from the start, I'd still be excited because he does such a great job. But the story really hurts this movie. Again, Matthew, you're 100% when you said it was poor and lazy writing in this movie.
Blofeld informs Bond he has Swan and activates a detonator for 3 minutes to level the entire place. 2 ticking clocks for the price of 1. This is the worst Craig film, easily.
You notice how the dead cord looked like a spider web? And they did that kind of intentionally, too. All the dead cord leads to the center of the spider web where Blofeld is with the switch.
Well, to be fair, the det cord usually would, I would say, like a tributary on a river, go to it. Usually, it depends, like you might have multiple detonator spots, but you'd want to get it. That's not what bothers me. What bothers me is that it leads to Blofeld.
Yes, I know.
Blofeld offers Bond to die trying to save Swan, or save himself. But Bond chooses option C. He takes off looking for her, and in this giant building with many floors above and underground, tunnels, bunkers, labs, cells,
secret rooms,
she could be anywhere. So of course she's in M's old office, the most obvious place ever.
Well, yeah. The first place he would look.
For real. But Blofeld has a flair for the dramatic, man.
Right? A room with a view.
Quick insert of Q saying, "Got it," and then of Blofeld entering a Eurocopter Dolphin 2. Then back again to M, taking C out of his office when the chopper rises next to them and C jumps M. They struggle for the gun and shoot out the railing next to them over the lobby, then shoot the glass roof, which makes this ineffective villain just fall startled over the edge to his death.
Yay!
M is more confused that he fell at first than anything.
Yeah, he was. He was like, what?
Right? Now that he's an M, you can't have him just killing people.
Why not?
With that wrapped, Bond is still running. He makes it to the blast point area of Silva's attack and finds Swan bound by det cord. He cuts her loose, but there's only 45 seconds to spare. So they've established a few times now that the blast punched a hole straight down through all the floors. Even though it blew out the side of the office and followed the path of least resistance, it still punched many perfect direct holes in concrete slabs beneath it as well. But regardless, he scoops Swan and asks if she trusts him and jumps into the holes. Ba-dun-dun-dun.
Man, it is so lucky that somebody put that net there.
Is it? They land in a debris net that was above Bond when he first entered, and it acts like a trapeze net, arresting their fall. I don't really think it's that lucky. First off, it's a thing that exists in demolition and construction, and they already set it up when he first walked in.
Yes, they did. They set it up when he was looking for her, yes.
Once again, I think this is another one of those people's complaints that they only complain about because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, which is a couple of complaints in this movie, but this movie still sucks, so don't think I'm sucking his dick. There are some major complaints about this movie that are just people not knowing what they're talking about, though, and this is one of them.
Oh, do people complain about this part?
Why is there just this random trapeze net there? Well, it's a debris net.
It is a debris net. I just question it. I don't know.
That's what you question, and not the perfect holes punched through all... All right, whatever. They run for the basement docks, and we get a few inserts of the MI6ers walking out to watch the commotion at Vauxhall, and Blofeld wishing he had popcorn. The timer runs out, the building explodes and collapses, and Bond rides out just in time with Swan on the boat that they did establish in the basement earlier. The boat and copter chase races along the Thames. Bond fires at the chopper, and the chase goes under and over Lambeth Bridge, yet another location featured in Spooks, The Greater Good, and Fast and Furious 6. Then past the Houses of Parliament before finally ending on Westminster Bridge, at the foot of Big Ben, when Bond shoots out the chopper's engine and an emergency crash lands. Bond rides up to the bridge and gets out of the boat, while Blofeld kicks the door of the chopper open to crawl away injured. Bond walks up and over Blofeld. He points his Walther at Blofeld's head, giving him pause and causing Blofeld to repeat, "Finish it."
What's in the box?
But Bond drops his clip and pops his chambered round, saying, "Out of bullets." He looks at him and then to Swan and continues, "Besides, I've something better to do." He literally hit him with the "you aren't worth it" line.
Yep, the "you aren't worth it."
He's literally caused every bit of everything you've done, apparently, your entire life. The thorn of every side, every mission, every death, every loss. And he ain't worth it?
It's so unsatisfying. Like, if he put a bullet in his head, it might have saved this movie.
I mean, I get what they're doing here, but it doesn't work here. This is literally the most worth it guy of all time. Just shoot him.
If he's the one who's ultimately responsible for Vesper's death, and think about it.
Kill him!
How many people did you chase around the globe for years?
At this point, it's not even about revenge. It's about preventing him continuing this for another 30 years.
Yeah.
Kill him.
Yeah, kill him.
Bond and Swan walk to each other. Bond tosses his Walther symbolically, and the lovers kiss. M arrests Blofeld, and Bond walks off into the night with his girl. Fade to black.
Off into the sunset.
We cut to Q sometime later, working in his basement lab, when Bond comes down the vehicle lift and walks toward him. Q is shocked. He thought Bond was gone, and Bond says he is. There's just one thing he needs. So cut to Bond and Swan taking off in the DB5 with the classic Bond theme hitting, as he goes to do with her what he almost did with Vesper, hanging it all up to go have an actual life for himself. Hard cut to credits.
So you're telling me, while all of this shit was going on for the last few days, somebody in the Q branch, which has just been disbanded, put James Bond's car back together from frame?
Yes.
Because the first time we see this car, it is a frame.
After he stole a 300 million prototype, they said, screw it, just fix his car so he'll stop stealing ours.
I guess. And they did it so quickly.
It became a priority after losing 300 million pounds. No matter where you stand on this film, it's objectively the worst of the Craig-era films. It's not only irrevocably broken as a standalone film, it ruins everything before it and makes the next film play a bit of Mr. Fix-It instead of completely focusing on itself. That being said, I'm giving it a C-. Because as full of stupid shit as it is, as self-parodic as it is, and as retroactively ruining as it is, there's still more meat on the bones of this film than a good bit of the Bond films from the formulaic era. The length of my script proves it. I went into this thinking it would be the worst, that this script would be a much-needed short one. But it's not, and that's for how much the film does have going on. Is it a bad Craig film? Oh yeah. Is it better than Octopussy? Oh god, it's not even close.
Yeah. I know you were expecting this to be a bad movie, and it is a bad movie. But as I was saying, it's still, hands down, 10 times better than some of the, say, Roger Moore movies. It's a bad movie, but it's still shot well. Stunt work was good. Even the pacing wasn't bad. It's just bad writing. So I'm going to give this movie a solid C. It's very middle of the road as far as Bond films go.
So for the kill count, how many do you think Bond kills?
Well, if we're counting everybody in the base, it's got to be in the upper 200s. I'd say 235.
Oh wow, holy shit, how the fuck did you do that? That is incredibly close. So according to the script, Bond killed 200 men in the crater base explosion alone. So Bond kills 232 people.
I only missed it by 3.
I don't just go, oh, there's probably an extra 100 in there somewhere. It's such a big facility. It's like we can only add what we see on the screen, right? This film specifically had in the script that there were 200 men he killed in there, so that's the only reason we know that.
Right.
6 others are killed by other people or means for a total of 238. So this is technically the bloodiest film for Bond, but it's all unseen guys.
Yeah, mostly, yeah.
For the pre-title is huge. From faux unbroken long takes to stalking, spying, explosions, wanton destruction, cartoon pratfalls, and many head-dizzying stunts. They got a Red Bull chopper to do corkscrews and barrel rolls. And most of the stunts were real. The Day of the Dead was a nice aesthetic touch. But all of that said, it still always feels like something's lacking. It should be way more exciting than it actually is on landing. It's the biggest opening swing, just not the hardest punch. 8th place.
I was a tad bit nicer than you on this. I feel a lot like the same as you did. It's like the stunts were really good. The Day of the Dead looked great. It was shot really nice. It just lacked any of the gravitas any of the other pre-title sequences had, so I gave it 6th place.
For the title and theme, the title sequence was almost boring in how unremarkable it is for a film this far into the series. It's shallow in theme, timed for a different and far better song. I hate Sam Smith's song, and the fact that it was chosen over what is, in my opinion, the greatest Bond song ever written makes it even worse. 25th place, fuck the writings on the wall and these titles.
I didn't hate Sam Smith's song as much as you did, but the title sequence was disjointed and jarring. And you're right, it was shallow. It was overshadowed by everything before it. I gave it 11th place.
It's like at this point in the franchise, film 24, you kind of have to bring your A game.
Right?
Moneypenny pickup line. Bond doesn't really hit her with a pickup line so much, but he does get possessively jealous when he learns that she has a spooning partner overnight. Again, it's less cheesy lines and more of what a real-life professional relationship with suppressed attraction would look like. 7th place.
Well, we agree on this. I also gave it a 7th place, as it was kind of a cutesy nod to the way the relationship used to be in the previous films.
Q gadgets. Q gives Bond an explosive watch, and Bond straight steals the DB-10 and its gadgets, which either aren't loaded or were gags, with only a few exceptions. The watch does save his life, though, and Q technically saves the day with his effortless super hacking. 18th place.
Ouch. You don't like this Q at all.
I don't like how he had an explosive watch, and that's it. Literally, the hacking scenes were, oh no, and then cut back to him. He's like, done it, I'm in.
Well, I kind of like this Q. He kind of grows on me, talks the tech talk. If they were going to utilize him as a character, he was very underutilized in this film, so I gave it 11th place. Plus, I only gave him an exploding watch.
Completely different character than the last film, too. The last guy was the pajama warrior.
He is, definitely. Yeah.
And this guy can disarm Bond.
Yes.
Cars. The Aston Martin DB-10. The thing is clean. Too clean. It looks like a spaceship. The design is a little much for me. Its gadgets barely work, and it lasts all of one chase before drowning. But it is clean. 11th place.
I like that Aston Martin a lot. Not as much as the DB5, but a lot. So, 3rd place.
Main ally. Gareth M. Mallory. M not only accompanies Bond in the climax, but has his own side mission against C. He's very much a part of stopping the actual present threat of the movie along with Q. And he kills C, the mini-villain of the film. M also gets his own Bond moments, like the shadow reveal. He's super ballsy, and you definitely understand this guy fought the IRA. He's no slouch, even if they won't let him actually, kill anyone on purpose as M anymore. 7th place.
I liked M's performance in this, and I gave him a 5th place. He served his purpose. He was more impactful as far as allies go than a whole bunch of other allies. I mean, he actually did shit. And he's very smart. He didn't spend the whole time eating fucking chicken.
Villains. Ernst, Stavro, Blofeld, born Franz Oberhauser, and adopted older brother of Bond. You know who he is and the organization he runs. But this one is bitter, jealous, and psychotic. He seems to enjoy nothing more than manipulating people and having them killed. And of course he wants world domination as well, because why the fuck not? The strongest aspect of this Blofeld is the man playing him. The rest is rushed and fluffed, writing-wise. He's Dr. Evil. Come on. 21st place.
I scored him a little bit higher, but purely based on Christopher Waltz's performance.
That's why he didn't get last.
Purely based on Christopher Waltz's performance, he got an 11th place.
That's insane. Main hench, Mr. Hinks, played by the Leviathan, Dave Bautista. The giant man brings back the heavies of old and is a nice combination of a few of them. He's the height and strength of Jaws with the imposing nature of Oddjob and the cold deadliness of Grant. He has metal thumbnails for gouging, and the only word he ever says is shit. This guy is so big he makes Craig look tiny and just throws him around like a doll. He's never played for laughs, yet still brings back that feeling of the classic larger-than-life hench. 6th place.
I like Mr. Hinks a lot. I think he had a foreboding, unstoppable presence in all of his scenes. And Dave Bautista did an excellent job doing that. I gave him 4th place.
Bond girl, Dr. Madeline Swan, daughter of Mr. White, raised mostly by her French mother, she's hiding from her father's life when Bond enters to drag her back in. Léa Seydoux is gorgeous. Not the hottest Bond girl ever, but she is beautiful, and she saves Bond's life from Hinks. The character is an amazing balance of strength and vulnerability, I'll give her that. But the chemistry between Seydoux and Craig feels very lacking in this film at least. 14th place.
I gave her 7th place. She's a lot more capable than a lot of the Bond girls. I know their chemistry was a little bit lacking, but is still stronger than a lot of the other Bond girls. 7th place.
One-liner. Bond's one-liners are very weak in this film. Mr. White actually has the best one with "You're a kite dancing in a hurricane." Bond's best are snappy comebacks laden with innuendo to the females. Like when one says, "You shouldn't stare," and he says, "Well, you shouldn't look like that." Or, "They'll kill us both." Well, I can think of worse ways to go. You see what I mean? Nothing overly cool, badass, or funny. It's more flirty, and definitely nothing cool to Blofeld. He's got to be angry in those scenes, grr. So I'm going with, "Who are you working for? Who sent you?" To the mouse. 'Cause I can. 20th place.
I'm going "You shouldn't look like that." And I gave it 13th place because I fucking agree.
Locations: Mexico, London, Italy, Austria, Morocco.
I found the locations boring and pedantic. They went to some cool-ass places, but they didn't show you anything. So, 11th place.
Cool ass places, but did it fucking matter at all?
No,
Did it impact the story, honestly? They could have happened anywhere.
none of it impacted the story. None of the spaces were really utilized.
Blofeld's command center could have been next to a Starbucks and it would have changed nothing.
Not a damn thing.
With the success of Skyfall, the budget was drastically increased, and one effect of this was the locations actually being shot where they say they are much of the time of this film. Outside of Ciara's estate and the Austrian mountains, though, this movie was never much to look at. It was downright drab and ugly at times, and others I could barely see what was going on at all. Replacing the cinematographer was also a mistake. It's not really locations, but still the shots suffered. This film is ugly in visuals and in spirit. 22nd place. Protracted attempt to kill Bond, the drill chair. And yes, he was going to kill him after torturing him. You think he was just going to let him go? This scene would have been great if it meant anything at all. Blofeld scrambled multiple areas of Bond's brain, and literally nothing happened, and worse, it's executed in a way to give it that Hollywood love conquers all tropey feeling. Inconsequential bullshit. It's an insult to your intelligence as a viewer. Last place.
I think you're just being mean to this movie.
I'm not. I'm being fair.
I gave it 15th place. As far as protracted attempts to kill Bond goes, I suppose it was a little clever.
They drilled into his brain and nothing happened. Whatever.
It had less gravitas than the scene it was emulating, which was the Goldfinger laser chairs or laser table scene.
Much better scene. Didn't have love conquer at all. It didn't have him saved by the laser from love after it cut his dick up.
No, it did not. It did not. So I gave it 15th place. You're angry. You're angry about a lot of stuff, and I can tell it's affecting your rankings.
I genuinely believe that deserves to be in last place because they drilled into his brain and nothing happened. I would rather him just escape or be put into a non-consequential situation to begin with. This is just insulting. Mission or plot. Rogue Bond, at the behest of a dead former boss, kills an assassin to go rogue again, to attend his funeral and learn about Spectre and its leader, then hunt and kill said leader, while also stopping his ultra-evil spy program, though we really leave that to the nerd. It's a revenge plot from both angles. They are a cyclic force of pain and hate, perfectly mirrored by the other. Again. Man, okay, they really better not do that again in the next one. 13th place.
Yeah, they do. I found it convoluted on Blofeld's side.
No way.
You went through a whole lot of work just to fuck up this dude. I mean, a whole lot of work. Spent a whole lot of more money than water in the grass. Magically planted DNA on Q's computer. This is a 15th place. This, just bad. It was bad.
Stunts. The stunts are insane, this movie. Craig on building ledges, flipping helicopters, fights on the side of it. Craig actually whipping the Aston around for a chase, shoving Craig down a mountain in a fuselage, and world record-setting explosions. You had to get one movie, so first place.
I gave the stunts in this movie third place. The stunts were real. They were visceral. That explosion was fucking over the top. The helicopters were great. However, a lot of the stunts were just eye candy, and I tired of the Michael Bay blowing up shit for the sake of blowing up shit. Yeah, the stunts were good. Third place.
The score.
The score was okay throughout the film. The score was all right, so I gave it 11th place. It wasn't obtrusive, and it didn't seem like it was lacking in spots. At some parts, it was kind of ethereal, and at some points, it kind of reminded me of Batman. So, 11th place.
The score is incredibly effective, but borders close to generic for its era. It's definitely copying the Dark Knight's vibe and shares similar elements and beats. It's not bad. It completely works for the film, but also doesn't do much to stand out, except for when it sounded like Danny Elfman. I did like the bit during the Rome chase, though. 15th place. Movie.
Overall, it's not the worst James Bond movie. It's not the best James Bond movie. It is the middle-of-the-road James Bond movie. 11th place. Could have been great. It had a bunch of great elements and great components.
And Smart Blood.
God damn it.
I love how that impacted the film so much.
Yeah, well, we never talk about that again either.
Yeah, we will. Very next movie.
Oh, because of the nanites. Anyway, 11th place overall for this movie. Very middle of the road.
Coming off the heels of Skyfall, I think everyone expected something different from this movie, myself included, and can't help but do direct and unfavorable comparisons with Skyfall. And going back, this film's sins are still as bad as I remember. It's a parody of itself. It ruins what came before, it's beyond stupid and plot-holy, but they all are. They ruined Blofeld, though. The whole movie is a drab, mean-spirited affair. It's a dark, cruel, ugly movie, and yet it's still written with more depth and layers than almost every Roger Moore film. Almost. They were making movies differently at this point, and as Carter said, the worst Craig film is still better than more than a few that came before it. They've learned so much about movie production since even the Brosnan era, and the scripts are laden with plot points, mini-arcs, and thematic depth. Just not all are winners, and are easily susceptible to being bogged down under their own weight, which is obviously what happened here. 17th place. And as they said, Bond will return, and so will we. Until then,
I'm Agent Carter.
And I'm Agent Sedgwick.
Stay spying, y'all.